J.D. Vance was actually still in the United States Senate, still questioning Biden officials at the same time that he is the vice president-elect. Wouldn't that be just absolutely rich? Oh my gosh, that would be so freaking funny. Wow, I can't believe the S&P 500 off 0.5% today. Wow, I didn't realize the markets were down that bad. Wow. Must have been the poor inflation news that hit this morning. Did you guys hear about the horrible inflation news? Or was it I wonder them going after big tech on all of the antitrust stuff. Activist Starboard Value takes stake in Bitcoin mining company Riot. Warner Discovery to restructure, setting up potential strategic opportunities. Dude, this is crazy what's going on with the legacy cable TV business. They're selling off all the channels. Oh my God. These cable TV channels are virtually worthless now. Investors shouldn't count on much help from the Fed next year. Oh, dude, this is the type of article that is why the S&P 500 is way, way down. Investors should not count on much help from the Fed next year. Markets still expect 2 or 3 rate cuts in 2025. That could be too optimistic. I wonder if this means that bonds are not going to be doing well, though, too, because I'm kind of all in on bonds right now instead of the S&P 500 just because of where things are at. Could the Federal Reserve be done cutting rates after December? That shouldn't be ruled out. That'd be amazing. Frankly, it's kind of amazing that the Federal Reserve is even cutting interest rates right now. I mean, we just had inflation data this morning at 2.7%. The Fed's own target is 2%. Why is inflation at 2.7%? The Fed says it should be at 2%, and they're cutting rates. Meanwhile, the 10-year Treasury is up over 4 point yield. Obviously is not adding up here. Markets seemed undisturbed by Wednesday's inflation data, which showed consumer prices rising 2.7% in November from a year earlier, up from 2.6% in October. The S&P 500 rose 0.8%, and the NASDAQ the S&P 500 rose 0.8%? Oh, wait, hold on. When was this? Oh, dude, this was 5:30 a.m. this morning. Oh, man. Yeah, no wonder the market's tanked. Consumer price index changed from a year earlier. That doesn't seem like enough to discourage the Fed from plans to cut rates at its December meeting. As of Wednesday, futures markets were pricing in a 96% chance of that happening. Markets are betting the gradual slowdown in hiring over the past few months makes the Fed still comfortable with additional easing. Month-to-month swings in such factors as labor strikes and hurricanes have made the data somewhat hard to read, but the underlying trend is clear. The 3-month average for job gains is down to 173,000 in November from 243,000 at the start of 24. Really? So like just a barely tiny tick down in monthly job growth is enough for the Fed to cut rates when you've got inflation running hot still? Doesn't seem to make sense, does it? Futures prices now imply 2 or 3 more quarter point cuts by the end of next year. That could be too optimistic. Despite the slowdown, jobs are still posting decent gains. Economic momentum is strong. Real GDP growth clocking in at annualized 2.8%. Inflation stuck at around 3% above the Fed's 2% target. What compelling reason is there to keep cutting? And that is before taking into account Trump admin policies such as tax cuts, immigration crackdown, and tariffs. How much of each we will get and when remains uncertain. It seems highly likely that there will be at least some of all three, and all of these policies would likely be inflationary. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. ECB cuts rates again to boost flagging growth. The European Central Bank is cutting rates. Google's quantum boost doesn't really compete. How booming leveraged funds can incinerate your money. Oh, man, that was a good article. Man, I can't believe the freaking S&P 500 is still, even being off as much as it is, it's still over 6,000. I need her to get down to like 5,000 or 4,500, ideally. Ooh, here we go.
What do you have to say to the American investor in this country?
Well, I think you're going to see some very good days ahead. A lot of incentives are going to be given. You saw yesterday a $1 billion investment, and we give you very fast approvals. Nobody's come up with that one yet, although it seems pretty simple. I think you're going to have some great days ahead. We have to conclude a couple of bad wars that are going on. A lot of bad things are going on, but we'll get them done.
Do you think that we are in a situation where business will be far more embraced under you than currently?
Well, I don't want to really knock current, but I will tell you more than at any time, anywhere in the history of our country.
Now, we used to speak together about the idea that the averages mattered and were a good barometer of your performance. Is that still the case? Can we go beyond Dow Jones, maybe to NASDAQ?
Well, I think I've always said, to me, stock market is all of it, all of it together. It's very important. It's an honor to be here at New York Stock Exchange. I sort of joked that I actually bought the building across the street because the stock exchange was here. It's a big deal.
40, it's a nice building.
40 Wall Street. So, look, we're gonna do things I think that haven't been really done before. We're gonna be cutting taxes still further. We got it down to 21%. We're going to bring it down even below that. You pay 21 if you don't build here, and meaning your product or whatever it is you're building. And if you do, we're going to try getting it down to 15%. But you have to build your product, make your product in the USA.
And how about every working person who's watching would love to be able to see dividend tax maybe much lower, capital gains much lower?
Well, we're going to be talking about that, and we're really talking about lowering taxes. Last time, as you know, we took it probably from close to 44, 45% down to 21. Everyone said that was impossible. Now, it was always I really wanted to get it down to 15, and we'll be able to do that. And if you remember, we had the best 3 years in the history of our country from the standpoint of the economy. And you've been so professional and so good. I haven't seen you so much since I've been a politician.
Well, thank you, sir. We were together, and I was grateful to be a judge on The Apprentice. We had a great time.
That's right. You were a judge. He was a tough judge. He was a tough judge.
Well, we had to eliminate some people who didn't cut the mustard. You made me a hatchet, man. I respect that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be doing the same thing. I can tell you. Unfortunately, there's too many of them. But I think we're going to really incentivize the country to go back and work, and they will be incentivized. They're going to do well. People are going to be very happy. JD is very much involved, and I have a great partner right over here with our First Lady. People love our First Lady, and we're going to do something very special. We have some great people up there. You saw some of the people on the cabinet, and we have some of the most successful people in the country, and we're dealing with the most successful people, and those are the people that put others to work. And we're going to be hitting job numbers, and as you probably heard me say, we picked up, since just the election, $3 trillion in, you call it worth or value, but $3 trillion was picked up since November 5th, so that's pretty good.
When President Reagan was here, he talked about putting the bear into hibernation, letting the bull run free.
Yeah.
Sound like a good motto?
Sounds perfect. I can't do any better than that. That's what we're going to do.
All right. Now, I know we've got some other people here, but I don't see Elon Musk. I was hoping, because he's been a good, let's say a good aid to you on a lot of different things, whether it be crypto or whether it be GLP-1 drugs. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas.
Well, he's got a lot of ideas. He's a great guy. He's a really good guy, too. And I guess his stock has done pretty well. Everybody's stock has done well since the election and even before. And Scott Bessent's done a fantastic job. And one of the things I liked about Scott is that he said long before I even know who he was that the market's only doing well. This is before the election. It's only doing well because they think Trump is going to win. So we made Scott the Treasury Secretary, which everybody frankly wanted, and he's going to do a fantastic job.
Meantime, how about a crypto? Really, we do need, I think, you're embraced in crypto, very different from the previous administration. Strategic Petroleum Reserve like for crypto?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to do something great with crypto because we don't want China or anybody else, and not just China, but others are embracing it, and we want to be the head. We're going to be ahead of AI. We're going to be way ahead of AI, and we've got to produce tremendous amounts of electricity. You know that. It's unbelievable when you think that we need more than twice what we already have. If you think that's pretty for a specific industry, but we'll be able to do it. We have Lee Zeldin in charge of the environment. He's going to be giving us very strong approvals, I think, and He's going to make sure everything's good and clean and proper, but he's going to give us very fast approvals.
Natural gas makes it so that we should be able to afford it and be able to handle the 5% per year grid.
Right.
But obviously, you think that we need to be able to be the king of AI, which means that we also have to, some people would say, protect Taiwan, because China would like very much to be able to have that technology.
Well, we're going to be having a lot of talks with China. We have a good relationship with China. I have a surprising relationship. Now, when the COVID came in, I sort of cut it off. That was a step too far. That was, as they say, a bridge too far. But we've been talking and discussing with President Xi some things and other world leaders. And I think we're going to do very well all around. And we've been abused as a country. We've been badly abused from an economic standpoint, I think, and even militarily. You know, we put up all the money, they put up nothing, and then they abuse us on the economy. And we just can't let that happen. We're not going to be abused anymore. We put America first, but we're also going to help other countries.
All right, I know you've got a ton of things to do, but what can you say to the working person who owns stocks? Should they buy more stock?
Well, I don't want to get into a situation where they do and we have a dip or something, because that can always happen. You know that better than anybody in the world, probably. I think you're the leading authority in going up and going down, but you always end up. He always ends up. That's the good news. But we have, like, Doug Burgum standing right over here has done a fantastic job. He's been on your show many times, and we have just tremendous people. I would say this, I think long term, this is going to be a country like no other. We had the 3 best years ever until COVID came in, and then we did a good job getting rid of it. The stock market, if you look at the markets, were higher than just previous to COVID coming in when we handed it over. And now we know. I know the people. I know the players. When I came in, it was very interesting, Jim. I came in, and I was not a Washington guy. I didn't know too many people in Washington. I had to rely. Now, do I know people? I know people. I know people so much, they're coming out of my ears. So we have great people.
Mark Zuckerberg?
Well, Mark Zuckerberg's been over to see me, and I can tell you Elon is another, and Jeff Bezos is coming up next week. And I want to get ideas from them. Look, we want them to do well. We want everybody, and we want great jobs, fantastic salaries. We want people to love, and, you know, when they wake up in the morning, like, get up, and I love to go to work. I want to go to work. We want people working, and we want them working for a lot of money.
All right, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Boom. We need more Donald Trump, baby. We need more Donald Trump.
Let's get a listen to this.
We need more Trump.
I brought some of our compatriots along with us. They're going to do a beautiful job for you for the next 4 years. And it's really been something very special. And I have to say, Time Magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually. But we did a good job. We had a great first term, despite a lot of turmoil.
What's up? Guess is in the house. Sussy's in the house. Numma's in the house. What's up? Trump Man of the Year hype. I heard buy. I know people. Binder's full of people. Yeah, it's just the same old Trump. It's just the same old Trump, isn't it? That's what you got to love about Trump. It's always just Trump.
Oil caused unnecessarily. But the media's tamed down a little bit. They're liking us much better now, I think. If they don't, we'll have to just take them on again, and we don't want to do that. But I do want to thank Time Magazine. I've been on the cover many times. I don't know who has the record, but I can only probably talk well about 25% of the covers. 25% are great. The others I just sort of hide. But it's been an honor, and every time it's an honor, I will tell you. And thank you very much for doing it. And thank the whole group at Time. Really very professional people. Thank you very much. And to Jeff and all of the people from nobody.
Oh, sure. Whoops. Sorry.
We'll have to just take them on again, and we don't want to do that. But I do want to thank Time Magazine. I've been on the cover many times. I don't know who has the record, but I can only probably talk well about 25% of the covers. 25% are great. The others I just sort of hide. But it's been an honor, and every time it's an honor, I will tell you.
Who are these other people behind him?
Doing it.
So this is RFK. This is Scott Bassett. That's crazy that he's got RFK with him. Dude, what are RFK's chances right now in the U.S. Senate? That's what you haven't heard much about the U.S. Senate talking RFK Jr., but with Bernie supporting him and stuff, you got to assume he's a shoo-in at this point, ain't he, or what?
And thank the whole group at time. Really very professional people. Thank you very much. And
oh, it's ridiculous, Guess. They expect us to believe that? They actually expect us to believe that they don't know what these drones are and they can't figure it out and that it's not them? They honestly expect us to believe that? That's the most outlandish, absurd, ridiculous, preposterous thing I've ever heard in my life.
And to Jeff and all of the people from the New York Stock Exchange, he knows how much I like it because many years ago I bought a building across the street. I wasn't going to buy it. Then I said, you know, it's right next to the New York Stock Exchange. I'm going to buy it. We've had great success. 40 Wall Street, we've had tremendous success with it. But you've really had success with the New York Stock Exchange. It's an incredible group of people. And, Jeff, you have done an incredible job, you and your group. And what a beautiful speech you made. Thank you very much. I was some introduction of all of us. But we've gone up since the election. I was just told by Scott, everybody said, you have to pick Scott Bessent. He has to be the one chosen for Treasury. Where is Scott? Let's see. He's around here someplace. He's around here. He told me we picked up $3 trillion since the election day. And I said, well, that's good, but what about before the election day? He said, we picked up some money there because they thought you were going to win. I said, I like this guy. He's going to be my Treasury Secretary. But it's true. It's. I think we're going to have a...
Dude, Goku Gaines, I was thinking... Here's the thing, Goku Gaines. What's weird about me and CS is, like, I basically play to the level of my teammates a lot of times. And, like, because I solo queue and I just kind of screw around and I read chat and I don't focus and stuff, I've got this BS rank. I was thinking about playing some Face It on CS, playing CS on Face It and actually trying to focus and play. But, of course... I would just be solo queuing, and then it's like, okay, am I just going to get screwed by like 5 stacks on Face It if I'm just solo queuing and get a bunch of Face It trolls on my team? And so I don't know. But I am going to probably play some CS tonight. I'm going to do just chatting for a couple hours, though. I'm going to do a political stream for a couple hours just so that I can do some clip farming and clip engaging, short farming, clip farming, whatever you want to call it. And try to make some content for YouTube, just longer form content for YouTube as well. And then I'll probably play some CS. Right, Guess. Exactly, Guess. It's crazy all the lefties are trying to cozy up to Trump now. You got to get a good team together. Oh, yeah. No, dude, Donald Trump has the support of the American people, so look at him, dude. Think about this, dude. It's crazy. Look at this image. Here is Donald Trump at the New York Stock Exchange, opening the New York Stock Exchange with the Time Magazine Person of the Year behind him, with the coolest photo ever of Donald Trump. Who would have ever imagined that here we would be headed into Christmas 2024 and Donald Trump is Time Magazine Person of the Year. He's president of the United States. He's president-elect of the United States, and he's opening the New York Stock Exchange.
Straighten out some problems, some big problems in the world. It's when we left, we didn't have any of these problems. We didn't have Russia with Ukraine. We didn't have Israel October 7th. We didn't have the Afghanistan disaster. We didn't have inflation. We had no inflation. And we had a very strong economy. And we're going to do that again, but I think we're going to even up it because now we have experience that we didn't have. Now I know everybody. You know, when I first came in, we came down, Melania and I, a great first lady, who's very popular, by the way. She rang in. She rang in the bell.
Eric, what's up, Eric? Welcome. They said Jill sent to Trump some nice gifts. You wonder if she is being nice to them to stick it to Harris? Oh, of course, guess, yeah. Oh, I'd love to see, wouldn't that be crazy, guess, if like Joe Biden or Jill Biden, like in a year or two or something, came out and said they voted for Trump and how much better Trump is? And wouldn't that just be hilarious if that happened?
She rang in the bell. But we came down and we're driving down Pennsylvania Avenue and it was so beautiful. I said, you know, I've never done this before. I didn't know anybody. I got to the Oval Office and I'm picking all these big positions, and I didn't really know the people in Washington, but boy, did I get to learn fast. And now we do, and I think we have an incredible staff behind me and others that aren't here, and we're going to do a fantastic job. We're going to create the incentive theory again. In fact, I just announced yesterday, I didn't announce it for this reason, but anybody investing $1 billion or more gets a very expedited approval process, because, you know, the approvals, when people come into the country, it takes them, in many cases, 14, 15, 16 years to get the approval. We have Lee is around here someplace. He's in charge of the environment, and that's Lee Zeldin, who ran an incredible race for governor in New York, was a very, very successful guy before that. He was a great congressman, and he's a fantastic lawyer. He's in charge of environmental, and we'll try and push him as much as possible to get those permits very quickly. Like a nuclear power plant, I would say a week would be enough time. What do you think? Is that okay? We're going to get fast approvals, and it's great that we have Lee and all of the people behind. They're all stars in their own way. But it is an honor, and this is a double, because usually they don't coordinate the Man of the Year or the Person of the Year with the ringing of the bell. And brilliantly, you picked them both at the same time, and you were all friends, and you said, let's do it. And it takes one trip. It doesn't take two trips. That's okay. We like to save. We like to be able to do it properly. But this is a special group. So many friends in the audience, too. John, great job you've done at ABC. I'm really proud of you, and you've been so nice to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't actually acknowledge you at all. But you have been...
Wait, at ABC? Who's he talking to? John at ABC? Who's he talking to? Trump always says ABC is the worst of the worst. John at ABC. John Quinones? Is this who he's talking to? Is this who he's talking? Who the heck is this guy?
That really is. It's a terrific job you've done. But again, I want to thank you. We're going down to ring the bell now. And I could just say that the economy, I believe, is going to be very strong. We do have to solve some problems. We have wars going on that we didn't have. We have a lot of things happening that we didn't have that would have never happened. They would have never happened. But now they have happened. And I want to get them solved. We have to get them solved, because ultimately the power of weaponry today is the biggest threat we have, in my opinion. It's not some of the other things that you read about. It's the power of weaponry. The weapons are so powerful, so devastating. And I rebuilt our military. I got to know every one of them, including nuclear weapons. I hated to do it. Actually, I hated to do it.
Oh, Prola worked 11 hours and showed up late to the heist. Oh, no. After Num got 64,000, Goku Gaines got 1,800, Eric got 64,000. Boom. Oh, no. Shoot. Bad Boys got shot, though, unfortunately. Bad Boys, sorry you got shot. Goku Gaines made it. Did anybody else participate? No. Just Bad Boys got shot. Ooh. Ooh.
But we did some nuclear weapons that are so devastating, and almost makes you very sad as you get them and as they come online. It makes you very sad, because you know what the purpose of them is, and you just hope to God that you never have to use them. Because if you do, the world will never be the same. So we have to be very, very smart. We have to be very sharp. We have to be very special to do a job. And I think we'll get it done. And I think we're going to get a lot of people in the room. We've seen it. We were in France, where President Macron did a fantastic job with the cathedral, an absolutely fantastic job, of Notre Dame. And it was beautiful. The opening was the opening, and I just got back, and it was something really beautiful, and a lot of world leaders there. We had about 80 world leaders, different countries, and they were all coming together. They all wanted to meet us and meet me as representative of the U.S., and there was a lot of goodwill, but we're going to get some really tremendous goodwill. I was even thinking about inviting certain people to the inauguration, and some people said, wow, that's a little risky, isn't it? And I said, maybe it is. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But we like to take little chances, but that's not a bad chance. Here's a gentleman that's going to do a great job at HUD. Good luck, my friend, right? He's going to be a star. He's been my friend for a long time. It's nice to see you. I haven't shaken his hand yet. Come on. Congratulations. Thanks. Really, you're going to be great. And
who's going to be ahead of HUD? I don't know who that guy is.
Ben Carson is your biggest fan in the world. You know that. Ben has been with us for a long time and has done a fantastic job. Thank you. Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, go on. We're going to put it straight. We're going to give tremendous incentive like no other country has. We're cutting your taxes. We're going to cut them very substantially. We got them down to 21% from probably 42 or 44%, depending on where you are. And we got them down to 21. Everyone said that was a miracle. Now we're getting them down to 15, but only if you make your product here. Otherwise, you pay 21, which is not bad. It's in the middle of the pack. But 15 brings you down to among the lower. And for those that are running the big companies, those great, big, beautiful companies, nobody's going to be leaving us. You're going to be coming back. You're going to be bringing it back to the United States. We are incentivizing everybody to come back to the United States. We want you back here. Car manufacturers, everybody. And we have one product that nobody has really to the extent that we do. It's called oil and gas.
Yeah, that's interesting that Trump is just out there making that statement like this, just being very direct about it and saying, hey, this is pretty simple. Just come back to the United States. Very, very insular type of mentality. How do you feel about modern monetary theory? I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I would more agree with oh my gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on the economist's name. You know who I'm talking about, who says that inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. So yeah, no, I think modern monetary theory is ridiculous and a joke. But at the same time, it has also been true that that a lot of monetary theory would have suggested that we would have already had a currency crisis by now and already had a lot of problems by now, and yet we haven't, and we're still doing fine and things are cranking. So, you know, I don't think that debate is settled necessarily. Yeah, Milton Friedman, yeah. Trump 2.0 want to mess around. He will make sure everyone knows he's in charge. Correct, guess. Yeah, this is no joke. Trump and Doge want to reform the U.S. currency and get rid of the penny. It costs more to make compared to its worth. They're working at nickels as well. Nice, guess. Good. We should get rid of the penny. Yeah, I think we should get rid of the penny. I agree with that. It just goes to show you how bad inflation's getting, though. Pretty soon we're going to have like $1,000 bills and $10,000 bills because the dollar's just going to be garbage. Of course, I guess that's what they're trying to prevent. But it's funny that in trying to prevent that, they're actually going to get rid of pennies, which is kind of a sign of it happening. Copperhead, what's up? Stupid question. Why don't they just pass a law that says you can only charge so much? Why wouldn't that work? Like, genuinely? Charge so much for what? Like price controls? As a gas station worker, I'd be so happy when we get rid of pennies and nickels. Oh, like if they just said pass a law that said you can't charge anything that's like in pennies and nickels, like it has to be at least 10-cent difference. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the same thing as getting rid of pennies and nickels, pretty much. Dimes are kind of ridiculous in a lot of ways too. But no, you kind of need dimes, but. Have I asked before, should we bring back the gold standard? I'm open to the idea, Ohio Bacon. I don't pretend to be like an expert on you know, central banking and gold standard issues. I think, frankly, a lot of people that if you do claim to be an expert on that kind of just shows that you lack an understanding. I know enough about it to know that it's extremely complex and not I don't think there's a direct answer on that. But what I would also say this though. I would say that if you do believe in the gold standard and you are saying that we should totally upend society, we should totally flip over our society and flip everything on its head and get rid of our current financial system and totally flip our financial system on its head and redo it and start over from scratch with the gold standard. I think you've got a pretty big burden to bear to try to prove that taking that kind of a risk of that nature would be worth it and guaranteed result and stuff like that, which I don't think has been met yet. But I'm a conservative, so that's why I say that.
Yes, there is no country in the world that has more. We're number one. I brought it to number one during my first term in terms of production. We're going to be number one plus. We'll do numbers that nobody will really see before. And when that happens, prices are going to start coming down because people can't afford their groceries, and they're going to be affording their groceries very soon. I tell the story about a woman an old woman, no money, went to a grocery store, had 3 apples. She put them down on the counter, and she looked, and she saw the price, and she said, "Would you excuse me?" And she walked one of the apples back to the refrigerator and came back to pay for the 2 apples. And she left with 2 apples. And the woman at the counter said that was so sad. And when I heard about the story, I said, that should never happen in America. And it's not going to happen in America. We're going to do it right, and we're going to take care of our people, and we're going to do things that nobody ever thought even were possible. But we're going to have an economy the likes of which nobody's ever seen before, and everybody's coming back to America. I saw that the other day at the cathedral. They're all saying, we want to come back, we want to come back. And
dude, that's awesome, guest. That's awesome, guest. Very cool. American Patriots in the house. What up, American Patriot? What up? What up? Pennies are great for kids' allowance. Each day your kid comes home from school, you give them a penny. Oh, I love that, American Patriot. I freaking love that idea. My side gig, which is doing... Okay, I read that. Eric Carr said we should give all the pennies to Maryland, let them sort it out since they killed Lincoln. Hopefully car prices come down too. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Actually, Goku Games, what's kind of funny right now is like... Even though car prices are outrageous and sticker prices are outrageous, I kind of have a feeling that you could actually get pretty good deals on cars right now if you went in and like lowballed these dealerships. Because these dealerships, lots are filling up. These dealerships aren't moving vehicles because of interest rates and nobody can afford it and the sticker prices. So isn't right now, like if you actually had cash, like, or were actually willing to finance at these high rates, I think you could go in and lowball a dealership and get a pretty good deal. I could be wrong.
The couple of changes done by Howard and Scott and some of the great people up here with me, we're going to bring them all back. They're all coming back. So thank you very much. This is a great honor, and ringing the bell will be fantastic. And go out and get them. We're with you all the way. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nice. Donald Trump getting it done. I'm kind of curious if like the Trump War Room is putting out much. Oh, let's see what Caitlin Collin has. Trump is set to have a private dinner this Sunday with Aiki Abe, the widow of the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. A person familiar says the dinner will take place at Mar-a-Lago and Melania Trump is expected to attend. Trump and Mrs. Abe have maintained a close relationship ever since her husband was assassinated 2 years ago while delivering a political speech. Trump regularly calls Mrs. Abe to check in on her. A source close to the president-elect confirmed, and the dinner was scheduled through direct conversations between the two, not government channels, as is often the case with diplomatic figures. Wow, dude. So in other words, Trump is genuinely a good, nice guy. Okay, got it. Trump to time. I think that the Middle East is an easier problem to handle than what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Okay, I just want to say that up front. The Middle East is going to get solved.
So, not far from where I'm sitting tonight, Ray was confirmed with a total of 92 votes in the Senate. The only 5
Yeah, Caitlin Collins. That's not an endorsement of Christopher Wray. That's an indictment of the Senate.
Votes that you see there against him, the no votes for his nomination, those were all Democrats. That means every single Republican who was present voted for him.
Again, Caitlin Collins, that's an indictment of the GOP rhinos. Thank you very much for exposing the GOP rhinos.
But that was 2017, and
of course, this was Trump's nominee, so there's that.
Is now, and this was Trump when he selected Wray initially in 2017, compared to Trump's view of him just a few days ago.
Yeah, but see, this is the problem here, is that who cares that Christopher Wray was chosen by Trump and confirmed by Republicans? The issue was, in 2016 and 2017, we weren't in a situation we are now today where you have such massive support for Trump coming in and tearing these agencies up.
I believe that we will have a great FBI director. I think he's doing really well, and we're very proud of that choice. I think I've done a great service to the country by choosing him. He will make us all proud, and I think someday we'll see that.
Yeah, Caitlin Collins, sometimes you pick somebody and you think they're legit, and then it turns out they're actually a fraudulent deep state rat. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Big deal. What's the point?
Hopefully someday soon. So we're very proud of him. Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed.
Conservative Arc, what's up?
I can't say I'm thrilled.
Now, I should note, Chris Wray, of course, did not personally invade Mar-a-Lago. The FBI did execute a court-approved search warrant there 2 years ago after Trump repeatedly refused to turn over classified documents. Though Trump had several issues with Wray and wanted to fire him actually at the end of his last term, it was that search, once he was out of office, that really cemented his animosity toward him.
Oh, yay.
I also have new reporting tonight that as Chris Wray was wrestling with his decision to resign or not before Trump took office, one thing stood out. He wanted to leave the agency on his own terms. Once Trump had won the election back in November, it was clear
Does your
to
little
the
friend
director
like
that his
pizza?
time at the FBI was likely over, and he wanted the chance to have to say goodbye to the thousands of employees that he's led for the last 7 years, instead of being summarily fired once Trump regained power. The source that told me this said the decision exemplified really how Wray feels about the rank-and-file workforce inside of the FBI. He was described as sad about his premature exit, but approaching it with an attitude of resolve.
Sorry about that. Worried something I had something that I threw in the trash. Caitlin Collins, classic, just trash reporting, right? That's just all you get there. Oh my gosh, look at this, dude. CNN has Caitlin Collins and CNN have this guy on, Andrew McCabe. This guy's a disgraced fraud. What are you doing with this clown on here?
To announce that he's stepping down, not today, but before January 20th. Do you think he did the right thing?
Yes, sorry.
Or do you think he should have made Trump fire him?
Could I have some Robux?
Oh.
His decision tonight to announce that he's stepping down, not today, but before January 20th. Do you think he did the right thing, or do you think he should have made Trump fire him?
You know, I think Director Wray did a honorable job of leading the FBI.
Really? He did an honorable job by leading the FBI, by disgracing it in the face of the American people, by engaging in obviously partisan weaponization and corruption? Really? Huh.
Some very tough times. And I'm sure he has his own reasons for going in the way that he announced today.
Boy, this guy's just evil. You can just see the demon in his eyes.
But I believe very strongly that the principle of FBI independence is worth defending. And in this moment, the way to best defend that principle, this
Correct, Aaron,
post-Watergate
correct.
reform that has been the core of the FBI for the last 50 years, the FBI that the American people rely upon, the FBI that's independent from politics, the best way to defend that principle would be to remain in his position and force the president to fire him.
So you think he should have stayed?
I do. Yeah, I do.
And what does it mean now that he didn't? Because I was talking to someone today who said this idea of independent FBI directors, or the next.
This idea of an independent FBI director is anti-democratic because you know what? The American people want Trump in control of our government, not some independent, quote unquote, some rogue bureaucrat. No, we elected Trump. These people claim to be Democrats.
President leaves the former FBI director in place is over, because if Kash Patel's confirmed, if a Democrat's elected in 4 years, I think it's hard for people to see.
Yo, Wyatt, what's up, my man? Good to see you, Wyatt. How you been, man? What's new?
That they would potentially keep him in place.
It may very well be over, and that's really a crushing thing to FBI people.
Good. If the FBI people are mad that now America's president is going to control the government, and so does some rogue deep state scumbag partisan weaponization hack, good. I'm glad you corrupt hacks are mad about that.
Culture in the FBI has long seen itself, and for good reason, as being very different than every other government agency. And one of the reasons for that was
John. What's up, John?
Their storied independence. Independence that's really was legislated by Congress with the 10-year term for the FBI director. And I fear that what we're on the precipice now is the complete walking back of those 50 years of reforms in the post-Hoover FBI.
And I was thinking of what has led to these two FBI directors being ousted. The last time an FBI director was ousted, it was because of an investigation into Trump, the Russia investigation angered Trump, and he fired James Comey. Now it's this
Dude, that's awesome, Wyatt. Congratulations, man. I'm so happy for you.
investigation into Trump, the classified documents, really. He was already mad at Chris Wray, but that was really a huge part of this, and it's just notable given, typically FBI directors would not be pushed out before their term. I think before James Comey, it only happened one time.
Only one time, William Sessions, and that was really the result of an investigation that had begun under the Republican administration of George Bush and then kind of got handed off to the Clinton.
Oh, I know, conservative Irk. Sometimes I'm in a different attitude, and it's pretty obvious, huh?
The results of which got handed to President Clinton after he was inaugurated. So, yeah, the things that cost Chris Wray and James Comey their jobs were not wrongdoing, was not corruption, was not a failure of performance. It was a failure to exhibit the requisite amount of loyalty that Donald Trump demands. And in Kash Patel, he's found the perfect FBI director for Donald Trump. The question is, because Kash Patel has that loyalty in spades. That's basically all he has to bring to the FBI. The question is, what sort of FBI director will Kash Patel be for the FBI and for the United States?
Well, and looking at that, Trump wanted to fire Wray at the end of his last term. Bill Barr threatened to quit if he did, so he ultimately did not. But when you look at this and what an FBI would look like with Kash Patel, what does that look like for people who are curious about this?
It's a great question because Kash's background and his qualifications aren't anywhere close to any preceding FBI director, right?
Take out what he said about the media and the deep state, which all are important. We're not ignoring that.
Sure.
But if you were ignoring all of that and just looking at his qualifications, would you feel comfortable with him running the FBI?
Absolutely not. He can't. He's not even. He doesn't have half of the leadership experience, the law enforcement experience, the legal career that any previous FBI directors had. And for one example, Caitlin, I'll have you focus on the few things he said about reducing the size of headquarters. Okay, he says it in hyperbolic, somewhat nonsensical terms on podcasts. But basically what he said is he's going to empty out FBI headquarters, send everybody back to the field. That's exactly where we were before 9/11. FBI headquarters has grown in the post-9/11 era because we realized we needed to centrally manage our national security program.
All right, whatever, dude. Screw you, dude. That's what I say to you. Audi Glaze in the house. What up, Audi Glaze? A former PA judge involved in the Kids for Cash scandal is granted clemency by Really? I saw there was a bunch of clemency news out, Glaze. I haven't got the details on that. That sounds corrupt. Let's see what else Caitlin Collins has, my favorite CNN anchor.
I can't tell though, it might just be a blanket, but it's the only cell that's locked. Is he gonna shoot it?
The guard makes us turn the camera off while he shoots the lock off the cell door. We go in to get a closer look. It's still not clear if there is something under the blanket.
Oh, it moved. Is there someone there? I thought I saw it move. Is someone there? Or is it just a blanket? I don't know.
I think it's someone. Hello?
Okay, it's just moving.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. He tells the fighter he's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months.
Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
He clutches my arm tightly with both hands.
Okay. Does anyone have any water? Water. My. Okay, it's water. It's water. Okay. Okay.
Oh, dude. Wow, dude. He was so thirsty.
You're okay. You're okay.
Dude, that's insane, man. I can't believe that, man. That Bashar al-Assad regime is so evil. Holy cow. Oof. I know this is no joking matter, but I had this mad thought that it'd be Joe Biden beneath the blanket. Do you know? That's the first time I've seen that. I've never seen that before. Scotty, what's up, Scotty? Do you know a lot of the gay conservatives? No, I don't.
Allegation, which he's denied. He's had Pete Hegseth's attorney on to talk about that. He's also faced allegations of mismanagement running former veterans organizations. I've also seen people who worked with him defend him in that situation. He's undergoing an FBI background check right now. Will you personally review that FBI background check before you vote yes?
I'm confident that I will. And look, I think the FBI background checks are important. I think they're a process. I have reviewed hundreds of FBI background checks.
Which one, Scotty?
It's an important process. So,
you think everyone should get one?
And I think given the allegations directed against Pete Hegseth, his FBI background check is naturally going to be more important. People are going to look at it and say, all right, there are allegations. Allegations don't mean guilt. So how credible are the allegations? What's the evidence? And I think the background check and Pete, what he said to me is he's eager to have that process go forward.
Do you think there's given you?
He's coming getting me.
Oh.
Carry them.
Is he under arrest? Oh, dude, that's hilarious. Did you guys... What was that? What just happened on my stream? Hold on, let me see. What did you guys... What the heck? Oh, dude, what? Oh, maybe it's this one. Oh.
What he said to me is he's eager to have that process go forward.
Do you think there's given you?
He's coming getting me.
Oh. Is he under arrest? He was under arrest with the Nerf gun. She had him under arrest. Oh, dude, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. And that's pretty funny and cute. That's pretty funny and cute.
Your view too many. Do you think there's anything in it that could change your view of how you're going to vote?
Oh, Grumple's in the house. What's up, Grumple? Good to see you. Mountain Mermaid is for Law and Order. She's a Law and Order mermaid. She's a Law and Order mermaid. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Wow. Nerf cavalry? I mean, hey, oh, yep, exactly.
Well, sure. I mean, a question like that, yeah, if he, killed someone and dragged their body into the woods, I'd vote no. I don't believe that's going to be the answer.
Right, but that's not your standard for confirming a defense secretary.
Of course not.
Surely.
I picked an absurd example. But yes, of course, with any nominee, if something comes out about them that nobody knows that is deeply concerning, everyone will. That's why you have advice and consent, because you discover things about people's backgrounds.
So Caitlin Collins thinks that's news that Senator Ted Cruz is going to do his job as a senator? Huh. Not sure what's newsworthy about that.
The other part of this, obviously, he's faced a sexual assault.
The advice and consent is part of the Constitution. It's an important role. But at the end of the day, and by the way, when Joe Biden was president, that's the same way Democrats approached it, which is they voted to confirm whoever he put up.
Yeah, well, and I know, with that, when we hear some Republicans saying, the president's entitled to his nominees, I've heard some people push back and say, well, we've seen Republicans vote against all of Biden's picks. You voted for against everyone except Lloyd Austin.
Yeah, but look, I mean, a lot of Biden's picks, I think, were extreme.
Yeah, it's like it's okay for senators to vote against Biden's picks because they were extremist, radical, anti-American dirtbag. It's not okay for them to vote against Trump nominees who are awesome, great candidate or nominees.
Look at someone like Merrick Garland. I think Merrick Garland has been the most partisan and political attorney general the country's ever seen. You look at someone like Alejandro Mayorkas.
My favorite pizza is Hawaiian, conservative work.
Who opened up the border and caused an invasion at our southern border. I was surprised Biden did not nominate more moderate candidates. You look at Trump. Trump's nominated several people who were Democrats until like 12 minutes ago.
Tulsi Gabbard, and
RFK.
But on the advice...
The advice and consent is part of the Constitution. It's an important role. But at the end of the day, and by the way, when Joe Biden was president, that's the same way Democrats approached it, which is they voted to confirm whoever he put up.
Yeah, well, and I know, with that, when we hear some Republicans saying, the president's entitled to his nominees, I've heard some people push back and say, well, we've seen Republicans vote against all of Biden's picks. You voted for against everyone except Lloyd Austin.
Yeah, but look, I mean, a lot of Biden's picks, I think, were extreme. You look at someone like Merrick Garland. I think Merrick Garland has been the most partisan and political attorney general the country's ever seen.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was just going to keep replaying. All right, here's another. Wow, she put up a lot of Ted Cruz clips. This is cool. I didn't know that. Oh, I'm living a dream, Mang. Started a new contract Monday. Pretty friggin' wiped, but it's so exciting. Dude, good, Grumple. That's awesome. I'll DM you what I'm doing. It's so sexy. Yeah, Grumple, and I still want to get on the chat with you sometime. Man, I've just been... I'll tell you what, Grumple. I've been I don't know if I'm having a really good. I'm having a. How do I explain this in a way? I'm having a really. I'm coasting at work right now at my career because I've had so many good years and good years and good years. I didn't have to kill myself this year to have another good year, and so I've been like really enjoying myself this year in terms of not working as many hours at the office, but playing lots of more games. And I haven't really even been trying to better my stream or anything. I've just been, it's like, all I want to do is just like, I'll just game and stream, you know, and then, you know, hang out with my family and do other things in the real world. But in terms of streaming and stuff, all I've been focusing on is just like gaming and streaming. But I do like hopefully want to talk to you about various ways to improve my stream. If you're still willing to have that conversation sometime.
This was his comments about women serving in combat. He said last night that his comments were misconstrued. So I want to be fair to him and play his actual comments of what he said about this.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated.
So that was him on November 23rd. I mean, he's explicitly saying that he doesn't think that he says it makes fighting more complicated. Would you agree with those comments?
Well, listen, what I would agree with is the proposition that women shouldn't be subject to the draft. And I've been very vocal fighting against putting women involuntarily into the military if they don't wish to serve. And that's been a live debate on Capitol Hill for a long time. You know, what I'll say on a view like that, I fully expect the Senate Armed Services Committee, they're going to have a vigorous hearing. And the one thing we know, look, the Hegseth confirmation hearing is going to be a circus. The Democrats are ginned up. They're ready to go for a battle. And you'll have that view, and you'll have everything about Pete Hegseth's background fleshed out. I will say that
it's really true, Conservative Eric. I've been playing a lot more video games this year than I historically have. By the way, lecture in the Vicky 3 mod, I've renamed Canadian province of Prince Edward Islands to the U.S. state of New Alderney. Nice.
So I met with Pete twice, and I know Pete.
Me, all conservatives on Twitch want to do is play their first-person shooters. LCTRfan, all I do is play. Yeah.
I like Pete. If you look at his background, he's a decorated combat veteran. He has spent virtually his entire adult life as a champion and advocate for the military, for active duty military, for veterans. And I think he has a very clear-eyed focus on moving the Department of Defense back to its core mission of, number one, supporting the warfighter, and number two, being prepared and ready to defeat our enemies if necessary. And I think that is a mission I strongly support.
But he's going to be, if confirmed, in charge of a lot of women who signed up to serve in combat. Joni Ernst, obviously, is one of those people. So, I mean, on that view in of itself, do you agree or disagree with
listen, I think at the end of the day, that decision will be made not by the defense secretary, but made by the president. And
but you personally, given your emphasis on advise and consent, do you share that view that the potential former defense secretary has?
You know, that is not a view I have articulated. What I have articulated is that you shouldn't force women to serve in the military against their wishes.
Yeah. Which are two very different arguments. And so
they are very different propositions.
Okay.
A little bit disappointed in Ted Cruz why he won't just say like, yeah, no, I agree with Hegseth that they shouldn't be in primarily frontline combat roles. Like, obviously, they can be trained to do combat and they're going to end up in combat, but they should. Why can't he just say that? Come on, Cruz.
Said you were retained.
Here, I gotta take a restroom break here, folks. Give me a few.
You're looking at the first photos of a big meeting here in New York City. Mayor Eric Adams welcoming Donald Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, at his residence for a highly anticipated meeting. The Democrat mayor says he and Homan have the same goal, and that is to deport illegal migrants who might have been accused or who have been accused of crimes. Watch here.
We're going to protect the rights of immigrants in the city that are hardworking, giving back to the city in a real way. We're not going to be a safe haven for those who commit repeated violent crimes. We made terrible mistakes in the past by preventing to keep our city safe from those who have committed repeated acts of violence.
And while Adams embraces cooperation, his counterpart in Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson, this guy, he's vowing defiance to Trump's immigration plans. But Tom Homan is warning there will be consequences if he blocks deportations.
Chicago's in trouble because your mayor sucks and your governor sucks. And we're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois. Now, if your Chicago mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. But if he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors and conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him.
Cyrus, I was saying on Newsroom today, I feel like President Trump is giving cover to people who want to do the right thing, but who's maybe the city council or their state legislature don't want to back them up on this, in this case, deporting illegal migrants. And so this meeting today in New York, is that a good step forward? Can something happen?
You know what? I could not be prouder than Mayor Adams, because he's not the mayor that the progressive liberals want, but he's becoming the hero that the people of New York need at his own expense. Because at the end of the day, he's a police officer and he has to serve and protect. And that's really what you want. He's not going to get support from those other groups. But by this meeting, he's showing that he doesn't care whether you're illegal or you're a citizen. If you break the law, there should be consequences. And and especially if you're breaking the law and you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be here. But he doesn't want the streets unsafe. He wants a sanctuary city. Can be a sanctuary city. It's a safe place to be, but behave, follow the rules, follow the laws, or there'll be consequences. And that's all he's trying to do, which is amazing to me that this is such a big deal. So yeah, he's going to get cover from the president, but he's going to get support from the people. And those who vote should look at the people who have problems with keeping our streets safe. Because if you break it down, that's all it's about, is keeping our streets safe. People in Chicago, you think they're going to continue to vote for a guy who's going to obstruct keeping their city safe?
Right.
That works for a while, but he's going to find out the hard way.
There'll be a backlash. And Judge, do you think that we'll see some results? I'm so hopeful. Well, I don't want to get my hopes up too high and be disappointed.
I think we are going to see results, because I think that Tom Homan is, with the support of the Trump administration, they are going to prosecute people for knowingly harboring illegals. That is a crime, and they're going to prosecute those crimes. What I think is interesting is that Mayor Adams forgot he was a cop for the first couple of years of his being the mayor. And I used to yell here and say, I want to see you roll your sleeves up and go to a homicide scene and be a real cop. But now that he's been indicted, maybe he's had a change of heart. What bothers me, though, is the quote is this: we want to deport those who are convicted of repeated violent crimes. First of all, as far as I'm concerned, any crime, since you're here illegally, is enough. And by the way, we've got 1.4 million deportation orders already before we even get to the violent crimes. Okay, so they've got a huge job. And you compare New York and Chicago to each other. At least in New York, Mayor Adams, to his credit, he's singing the right song. He's in the right choir now. And I'm happy about that.
He's been the only Democrat that's willing to work with this administration as a mayor. Chicago resisting, L.A. resisting, and it looks like Tom Homan has accepted the invitation from Mayor Adams to have a meeting today to talk about what they're going to do once he takes office.
Right. We're not asking for a lot.
No.
We're asking for access to criminals.
That's right.
If the detainers honored, give ICE a chance. By the way, I thought it was a great, Robert Holden, a Democrat from Queens, said, if you want to show that, Mayor Adams, talk is great, but if you want to show that you're sincere, set up the ICE office at Rikers again. Because they closed it down because they don't want to let.
He's also considering, Eric Adams is also considering getting rid of the sanctuary city status.
That's right. So Tom Homan, pictured right there, is going to be meeting with the mayor of New York. It's interesting. On Monday night, Tom Homan was at an event, and he revealed, we know that the deportation plan, on a wide scale, you know what American city they're going to start in? They're going to start in Chicago. He was a guest Monday night at a holiday party for Law and Order PAC. This is one of the quotes, according to CBS in Chicago. Tom Homan said, Chicago's in trouble because your mayor sucks and your governor sucks. And so he said it's going to start in Chicago right after the inauguration. And Homan asked the Mayor Johnson, and Governor Pritzker to come to the table and help with the biggest deportation in history. And here's the other quote. He said, if your mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. There's Johnson right there. But if he impedes us, Tom Homan said, if he knowingly harbors or conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him. So that's new. Now Tom Homan is suggesting if these people in the sanctuary city do impede the federal government, he's going to press charges.
Well, you can't harbor felons.
No!
You can't. There's already a federal statute. And that's all they're saying right now, is that When we come to pick them up, they're already in custody, or they're already in a certain community. The residents are upset. Just let us just get out of the way.
Proof from the residents themselves. Listen to them speaking out against their mayor. Watch.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Or when you took an oath, was it only intended to fight for the 10th and 14th Amendments regarding illegal aliens?
We don't want illegals in our community. We don't want migrants terrorizing our own people. And to have y'all sit up here and say, we have to accept $70 million being given to them when you got black people who are already struggling and need help, it is a disgrace.
All people. And that, by the way, we could have played 12 of these.
Yeah. No.
So the people agree with Tom.
Well, and you could see in that wide shot, you could see that some people were wearing, you could see red shirts. You know what the red shirt said? Chicago flips red. So essentially, he's getting in. Let me just finish this up. So essentially, those people who are showing up are suggesting, okay, you don't listen to me. Just remember, politics have consequences, and we could flip this town red, which would be rare.
I'm so glad this is their message, finally, because you've been to Chicago how many times?
I mean,
Gianno Caldwell's brother was killed there, and it's very dangerous already. The money needs to go to the residents. It doesn't need to go to the illegals.
Well, Ainsley, and when I was there a few months ago, they're showing this now. We're showing this now, but we covered this leading up to the election.
Yeah.
They have shut down schools of kids in the community. They said they didn't have any money for it. And then they reopened them.
To shut them down?
Well, they shut them down because the city said, here's the airport. They said, we don't have any money to fund this school or this community center. But then they reopened them, found the money magically for the illegals there.
Yeah.
Y'all remember when I was in there as well? I was outside of one of the holding facilities. There's drug bags all outside of the place where they clearly have some type of illegal substance there. And the residents have been crying out for help for a long time, and the mayor is still giving a backhand.
I know. Why is the mayor doing that? He's not
crazy.
listening to the people.
But you know what's interesting is that the people he thinks he's representing, he doesn't understand. He's going by an old playbook. He thinks that if I go to the bat for inner city America or for minorities in my city, I'm going to make the hard decision against the law enforcement. But law enforcement and his people actually agree. He's the impediment.
Yes.
So is the Denver mayor the impediment. Yeah. Denver is falling apart, crushing on its own weight. Per capita, more illegals, more immigrants than even New York City. And all this mayor cares about, I'm going to fight for my people. Do you understand that your people are asking you to get out of the way?
And he once agreed. Yeah. He told us in an interview that they're at their breaking point. Magically, when Donald Trump is elected, then he turns back to the same old thing. So you can't just resist because it's Trump. You got to do what your people are asking you to do.
And the Chicago people are simply saying, look, you're spending too much money on the migrants. And you know what? You know what I think the people of Chicago would like? A Department of Government Efficiency.
How long is
they need a Doge in Chicago.
Do you know how long he's in office?
Well, he just got
it.
He's
Like
got
a
3
year
more
ago?
years left. He's like a year, 2.5 years, I would say. I'd say also they are in the red.
They got to get it right. They got to get it right in Chicago. They continue to elect these individuals that aren't common sense.
And that's why Tom Homan is starting in Chicago.
The crazy thing is he was second, and they had the runoff, and he ends up winning because
But Chicago reminds me of New York. Remember, they were great cities, great cities. I still love New York. Y'all know I love New York, but it's different.
Chicago's beautiful.
Chicago was a clean mini New York. I used to always say I love to go visit my college friends in Chicago. But now we're hearing all these stories of how, Carly, Carly used to live there. They had an apartment there. Her husband.
Yeah, and there was I will never forget the mass shooting that took place outside our old apartment in Chicago, just across the street.
area?
Yes.
Nice beautiful area. Drive-by shooting.
All the
at
great
a gas
stores
station.
on Michigan Avenue, a lot of them were closing down.
Exactly, and an innocent person was hit. So that's a jarring reality for a lot of people living in Chicago.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
All right, almost done here. Sorry, guys. Almost done here.
We've learned so many.
If it's Thursday, Washington prepares to ring in a new era as President-elect Trump is named Time Magazine's Person of the Year, talking about his day one priorities as challenges overseas threaten to overshadow his agenda at home. Plus, new evidence against the suspect accused of murdering a top healthcare CEO as a top Democratic senator speaks out, saying the explosion of public outrage should be a warning to the healthcare industry. The controversial comments ahead. And demands for answers. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle want to know where the mysterious drones reportedly spotted flying across New Jersey are coming from, who's controlling them, and why, as national security concerns mount. Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington. It is full steam ahead for President-elect Donald Trump and his agenda, with just weeks until he's sworn into office for the second time. This morning, Mr. Trump rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, flanked by members of his family and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, after being named Time Magazine's Person of the Year for a second time. Time described Mr. Trump's political rebirth as unparalleled in American history and writing that he has remade American politics. In brief remarks this morning, the president-elect struck an optimistic tone for his incoming administration.
I think we're going to have a tremendous run. We have to straighten out some problems, some big problems in the world. It's when we left, we didn't have any of these problems. We didn't have Russia with Ukraine. We didn't have Israel October 7th. We didn't have the Afghanistan disaster. We didn't have inflation. We had no inflation. And we had a very strong economy. And we're going to do that again. But I think we're going to even up it because now we have experience that we didn't have.
In speaking to Time about the priorities for his next administration, Mr. Trump repeated some of what he told me in our recent interview, including that one of his first acts of his presidency will be to pardon January 6 rioters and backing down from his campaign promise to lower grocery prices. He also reiterated what he told me, that any potential prosecutions of his political opponents will be up to Pam Bondi, his pick to serve as Attorney General. And when it comes to some of those, the president-elect's more controversial cabinet picks, the pressure campaign for Mr. Trump's MAGA orbit appears to be working, with even Mr. Trump's embattled picks seemingly gaining momentum.
Do you feel like there's a pressure campaign against people who even throw out concerns?
I do, and I think that that's a two-edged sword. I think that you could run to a point when we have thin majorities to where you could, I think that it's more important to get behind closed doors, address concerns, and have Republicans come together as one than to create controversy.
Nothing new about that. Every senator has got to vote their conscience. My presumption is to vote for presidential cabinet choices. I do that almost all the time.
But beyond the Beltway, global challenges could threaten to overshadow Mr. Trump's domestic agenda. In the interview with Time Magazine, Mr. Trump, similarly to what he told me in our interview, would not explicitly say whether or not he's spoken with Vladimir Putin during the transition. Remember, President-elect Trump has said he could end the war in Ukraine even before he takes office. And on the Middle East, where Mr. Trump has threatened there would be all hell to pay if the hostages in Gaza were not released by Inauguration Day, Mr. Trump didn't rule out the possibility of a war against Iran in his second term, saying, quote, anything can happen. And of course, there is the continued fallout from the fall of the Assad regime, where in a dramatic development overnight, an American man was found after spending months in a Syrian prison. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins me now from Damascus, Syria, where he spoke with that rescued American earlier today. Richard, extraordinary developments. Tell us.
All right, folks, we're back. We're back. Sorry about that little break there. Good thing. Well, hold on. Maybe I'm not as back, but good thing I can't do this. Man, it's just so brutal, these mainstream media hacks and stuff. I can't deal. What's in the... Oh, I was going to read this. This is big news. The Trump transition team has started to explore pathways to dramatically shrink, consolidate, or even eliminate the top bank watchdogs in D.C. In recent interviews with potential nominees to lead bank regulatory agencies. Trump advisors and officials from his newfound Doge have, for example, asked whether the president-elect could abolish the FDIC. Wow, dude. Wow. So they're asking, wow. Advisors have asked the nominees under consideration for the FDIC as well as the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency if deposit insurance could then be absorbed into the Treasury Department. Any proposal to eliminate the FDIC or any agency would require congressional action. While past presidents have reorganized and rebranded departments, Washington has never shut down a major cabinet-level agency and rarely closed other agencies like the FDIC that are not. Yeah, that's the problem, Wall Street Journal. They never get shut down. That's why we want to shut them down. What's going on in chat, guys? What's going on in chat? What's going on in chat? I'm rich. Nice. A two-headed sword, tut, a double-edged blade is more the saying. I think he meant a two-headed snake or hydra. The name New Alderney comes from GTA 4 and the real-life British Channel island of Alderney. Very similar to the... Excuse me. The name, Channel Island of Jersey, which also inspired the name New Jersey. Nice. DM feels good, man. Right on. Lecture, instead of watching lamestream media, let's continue with the 50s high school debates. Oh, I know. I couldn't do any more of the lamestream media. Couldn't do any more of it. Oh, you know what I was going to check that I didn't check was the Trump war room. Although this article's crazy. Bank executives are optimistic Trump will ease a host of regs on capital cushions and consumer protections, as well as scrutiny of consolidation. But FDIC deposit insurance is considered near sacred. Any move that threatened to undermine even the perception of deposit insurance could quickly ripple through banks, and in a crisis might compound customer fears. After several banks failed last year, customers panicked about whether their deposits were safe. Many fled to the biggest of big banks, who are perceived to be so important the government would never let them fail. Since then, banks have been calling for wider deposit insurance protections to keep smaller banks competitive. Wow, dude. Biden announces largest single-day act of clemency in modern history. Netflix's extraordinary parental leave was part of its culture. That's over. Meet the people who refused to go back to the office and lost their jobs. Hamas concedes on Israeli troops in Gaza, raising hopes for hostage deal. The freewheeling small-town attorney representing Luigi Mangione. Dude, this story is crazy. The discussions underscore the drastic approach Trump could take in his attempt to slash the size of the government and ease oversight, including for the highly regulated financial industry. Potential bank regulator nominees have interviewed with Treasury Secretary Pick Scott Bessent in the new Doge department, the outside advisory group co-chaired by Musk and Ramaswamy. Musk last month called for the elimination of the CFPB. There are too many duplicative regulatory agencies. Trump advisors and nominees discuss plans to combine or restructure the main bank regs, the FDIC, OCC, the Federal Reserve. Project 2025, a policy document drawn up by the Heritage Foundation and former Trump officials, calls for the merging of the FDIC, OCC, and non-monetary policy parts of the Fed, along with the NCUA. Andy Barr, why wouldn't you? Yeah, why do you need all those different agencies? Of course they should be combined or gotten rid of. Andy Barr, a Republican from Kentucky and Trump ally on the House Financial Services Committee, has backed the plan to eliminate or drastically alter the CFPB. Said he wants to get rid of what he calls one-size-fits-all regulation for banks. Banks have a love-hate relationship when it comes to the oversight of multiple regs. Some like it to the extent it can allow them to shop between regulators for a lighter touch, but they often complain about mixed messages and contradictory rulings. We could use some streamlining on financial regulation, but it's really hard to get done. Yeah, we know it's hard to get done. That's why we sent Trump to do it. Banks may complain, but at the end of the day, they like to have their own regulator they have a relationship with. They like the status quo. Chief executive at a bank in New Jersey said there needs to be more alignment among the regs, but it is helpful for the system to have multiple regulators that understand the size, complexity, and future challenges of different banks. With tech such as AI, you need a different set of regs to be able to manage the banks that utilize these things at full force and others that have a more simplistic business model. The separate plan that has been floated with the transition team, the FDIC, OCC, and parts of the Fed wouldn't merge, but only one of them would continue to regulate banks. One of the people said the other agencies would keep only non-regulatory staff. At the CFPB, consumer education jobs could replace regulatory and supervisor jobs. Significant job cuts are likely. Trump's expected to reinstate an executive order that made some federal workers easier to dismiss, known as Schedule F. Stricter return to office policies could prompt workers to leave. Major bank regulation changes are uncommon outside of financial crisis. Most banking rules today were implemented after the Great Depression or the 08-09 financial crisis, when bipartisan groups and popular opinion called for stricter bank protections. Democrats were the party after the 08 crisis to close one banking regulator. Many of the worst offending lenders in that crisis were supervised by the Office of Thrift Supervision, which wasn't a cabinet-level agency. The 2010 Dodd-Frank law abolished the agency by folding it into the OCC. Wow, dude. If you're reading this from your home office, it's time to consider whether you're prepared to lose your job over a return to office mandate. Companies are finally getting serious about in-person requirements after years of lax enforcement. Amazon will require employees to report to the office 5 days a week beginning January 2nd. Several major employers, including UPS, JP Morgan Chase, and Boeing, have called at least some of their workers back to the office for the full 5. Boom, baby. I support it. I support it. Get back to work, boys. Get back to work. Hold on, Num, you got something for me? You got something for me? I'm 100% remote. Suck it. Are you really, Num? Dang, Num.
Captured this video of furniture being moved into this building, converted from a college dorm to a city migrant shelter with 95 rooms. Residents say they only know it's open from their own observations.
Well, how much would you expect to pay in rent for a studio outside of Manhattan that's part of an affordable housing lottery?
Well, believe it or not, it still could be upwards of $2,400.
$2,400 does not sound affordable.
The influx of more than 3,000 asylum seekers living at the site is overwhelming the neighborhood. Demonstrators at a rally Rally Thursday highlighted a range of concerns, from excess trash to loitering and a surge of homelessness under the BQE.
But listen, let's be honest. Not one elected official I know would raise their hand and say, hey, bring the shelter here.
A new Bronx apartment building was meant to provide housing, but instead, it's a shelter. However, what nobody's talking about is this didn't happen because we've got a mean mayor or arrogant city leaders who
For
want to
sure,
pit groups
conservative
against
work,
each
yep.
other. No, instead, the actual reason this happened is even more controversial. Because it's the law, and the law here states anyone can request emergency housing and receive a temporary place to stay. And since the asylum crisis started, over 220,000 people, most of whom are fleeing extreme poverty, have come here. And our right to shelter rules, which most residents say they support, have mandated the city find and rent buildings to house people as needed, with the first facilities taken over for this purpose being abandoned hotels, warehouses, and empty soccer fields. But those aren't the only buildings the city is allowed to procure when faced with a humanitarian crisis, even if solving that crisis would conflict with New York's housing crisis. And as we're going to learn today, no building in town.
This is absolutely insane. They have the government there paying millions of dollars for quote-unquote free, taxpayer paid-for housing for illegal aliens? The absurdity of it truly shocks the conscience.
Town is exempt from these rules, even if it's an affordable housing complex a wealthy developer received government tax breaks to build, creating a crony capitalism that's perplexing to middle-income New Yorkers who keep voting in progressives who promise to fight for them but have yet to deliver. Which brings us to the real reason why the city is paying rich people to build apartment complexes as
Right, Grumple. Great point, Grumple. Great point, Grumple. Yes, and they complain about rent prices more than anybody else, don't they?
housing and then paying them again to turn them into shelters and house people who can't rent them. Many of these so-called affordable apartments are luxury apartments and were never affordable to begin with, but were created with special tax breaks for their developers through pro-housing laws, which sound good in theory but often lead to construction efforts that would never have occurred.
The other thing that's ridiculous about this is that this creates a massive incentive to go there. Because guess what? If you're some third world broke person and you're trying to come to the United States and there's some city that'll give you a free place to live at full-born, up-to-code living standard, United States living standards, you're going to go there. Because why the heck wouldn't you? Obviously. I mean, duh.
Naturally, as residents near these affordable properties don't earn six-figure salaries and can't fit their entire families into $2,300 a month, one-room studio apartments. And as you're about to see, that leads to the predictable creation of apartment buildings that shouldn't exist, can't solve New York's housing crisis, but are now making their owners very rich because of a different crisis. So here we've got some luxury apartment buildings, and although some of them were created with the help of government tax incentives to cordon off a certain number of units as affordable housing, none of them are failures like the buildings in our story today, which led to them being considered as shelters in the first place. But for a building designed to provide housing during a housing crisis to fail in that mission is a big disaster, especially when the property got government tax breaks to exist in the first place. Yet this is exactly what happened to the building in our story that was meant to provide affordable housing units, but now is no longer able to do that. Because after it was built, it was so expensive, nobody could afford to live there, and many of the units sat empty. And the city, who's looking for extra shelter space, saw that building and said, gee, that looks like a place we could use, and they've been doing this all over town for months.
Harlem residents are accusing the city of using the bait and switch tactic on them. They tell us what was built as a luxury apartment building almost 10 years ago is now being turned into a migrant shelter. CBS 2's John Diaz.
So this story took place about 9 months ago, but it's got a lot of similarities to the affordable apartment building in the Bronx that just became a shelter and did so in a way that will shock most people. Both of these buildings have a lot in common. First of all, they were completed buildings that were empty, and nobody lived in them for some reason. The Harlem building was about 90% finished, but then sat empty for 10 years and was never approved for occupancy because of some tax issues and legal disputes, which stopped the apartments inside from becoming people's homes. That is until the city stepped in with the idea to turn it into an emergency shelter. Because although our laws say the building, which had a pool on the roof and luxury apartments inside, wasn't 100% ready to become traditional apartments, corner cutting was allowed to house people in the event of an emergency. And while that property was blocked from being used as housing for the asylum crisis and was eventually turned into a traditional homeless shelter instead, this Bronx building has residents living in it right now. It's just that they couldn't rent all of the units and the city rented out the rest. And because 30% of the units are being rented out at below market rents, the building owners say they qualify for the government tax break that they got in the first place, and with the city renting the rest, the place is fully leased out and they're making an absolute fortune. But before we get into how exactly they were able to go about this legal loopholing to make lots of money during a housing crisis, we've got to look at why the other units in the building failed to be rented out in the first place.
This 5-story apartment building on 3rd Street in Astoria, Queens will soon have 16 new apartments, 5 of which will be available in the city's affordable housing lottery. But how affordable are affordable units in these lotteries? The studio here will rent for about $2,400.
So sometimes when affordable apartments get built, the affordable part never seems to happen for some reason. And sometimes the apartments end up sitting empty because the affordability calculation yields numbers that might benefit the landlord, but none of the local residents. And there's 2 ways this can happen. First, the affordable rent calculation can just be wrong and nobody will be able to rent any of the units at those prices. Or, as was the case with our Bronx building, all of the below market affordable places got leased out, but the landlord jacked up the rents on all the market rate units and nobody was able to rent those. And as we'll soon see, the landlord of this Bronx building, they are very well connected, and some people think they might have done this on purpose, knowing that maybe the city would let them turn it into a shelter. But before we get into that, realize that not all of these affordable housing projects are total failures.
You know what's the most insane thing about this? Is this has been going on, and the most insane thing about this is these people that live in New York City voted for Democrats again in 2024. That's the real, whoa, no, that's shocking.
Like this 44-story mixed-use residential building on 10th Avenue. This building is called The Set, and it's got 135 newly constructed affordable apartments in it that can rent out for below-market rents. And right now, they have 5 of the unaffordable studios for $5,900 a month left, in case you want one. But unlike this facility, our Bronx building, which became a shelter, had market-rate apartments nobody in the area could rent. But in our Bronx building, studio apartments rent for around $2,150 per month, and the median rent for a studio in that neighborhood was $1,420 per month in 2022, which is less than what you'll find in here by comparison, but it reveals that there just isn't demand for luxury apartments in that particular part of town like there is here, especially when these are places that are one-room apartments. These aren't designed for families or somebody that has to live with a roommate or another person. And the reason it's so controversial that this place has become a shelter is because the building itself never would have been built in that part of town without the government tax breaks to do it. Unlike these luxury buildings here, which serve a purpose in this part of town where you have demand for luxury apartments in general. But as it turns out, the owners of this Bronx building have a history of turning properties into facilities that can benefit from government contracts that exist because of the asylum crisis, and this is not the first time that they've gone and done this.
It was in August when CBS News New York captured this video of furniture being moved into this building on Waldo Avenue and 238th Street in Riverdale. Converted from a college dorm to a city migrant shelter with 95 rooms, residents say they only know it's open from their own observations.
So this other Bronx building, which used to be a college dorm, is owned by the same people that own the affordable housing building that is also becoming a shelter. What are the odds? However, this particular developer isn't the only one getting in on the cash cow that is the asylum crisis. The same thing happened recently in Gowanus, Brooklyn, where a facility that was never allowed to be apartments was purchased by a different well-connected developer who then almost instantaneously got approval to make that facility a shelter, even though the city deemed it unsafe to use as apartments because of environmental factors. Proving that as the city deals with this ongoing emergency humanitarian situation, profiteers are lurking around every corner who have business plans that aren't to provide something to the free market, but rather the government, where they allegedly know the right people. And what's wild is even though most residents support the city's right to shelter rules, every time the city tries to build one, there are protests, there's pushback. And that's why when they set these places up, they do it in secret. So
dude, that shows that it's intentional. Oh, so horrible.
I didn't even know. Apparently, this little hotel right here on 36th Street is a shelter for asylum seekers. And even though the asylum crisis itself is drawing down compared to where it was a year ago, the city is still on the hunt for facilities it can use to house people. And with a limited budget, they've got to select places that are affordable and fit within that budget, which is why some hotels are part of this program and then they get dropped a few months or a year or so later. But even though most New Yorkers say they support right to shelter and this state voted blue in the last election, when the city sets up facilities like this, they are as quiet and secretive about it as they can possibly be until it's open.
In fact, the reason I know families are moving in is because I went over there myself to ask if families are moving in. And that's not an acceptable way for our city agencies to be communicating.
Here's what the mayor said at his media availability at City Hall on Tuesday.
I would be surprised if there were no calls made, and if there weren't, there should have been. But listen, let's be honest. Not one elected official I know would raise their hand and say, hey, bring the shelter here.
So look at this dynamic here. You've got the local councilman who's between a rock and a hard place, and he's upset with the city, whose leaders, like the mayor, are also between a rock and a hard place because the law says they've got to find places to put people. But even though the city was able to accomplish its mission by finding a location that could act as a shelter, the local councilman has no idea, and now he's got to explain to his constituents what's going on and why he didn't tell them. Because if the local councilman didn't know a shelter was going into his neighborhood, it's quite likely that neither did the local police or any of the other city services. And even if the shelter itself isn't controversial from the councilman's perspective, he's got a neighborhood to manage. And if new people live in the neighborhood and the neighborhood is not prepared with enough resources to continue to maintain the quality of life that everyone there expects, he might lose his next election because the neighborhood fell apart under his watch, and he didn't know about stuff that he should have known about.
Migrant shelter at 47 Hall Street in Clinton Hill has become a focal point of contention for neighbors who say the influx of more than 3,000 asylum seekers living at the site is overwhelming the neighborhood, from excess trash to loitering and a surge of homelessness under the BQE among migrants.
So this is probably the most prominent example of population growth in a neighborhood that was totally unprepared for it. Over here on Hall Street in Brooklyn, you've got a shelter that houses 3,000 people in a one-block radius that just seemingly popped up overnight, and the neighbors say that the city hasn't dedicated enough added resources to maintain the neighborhood the same way that it was before the shelter was there. They're not even saying that they don't want the shelter there. They're just saying that the city needs to do more to help the neighborhood in general now that more people live there. And the way this ended up working out was a building that used to be a co-working facility that went abandoned a few years ago and unused ended up getting turned into an emergency housing facility. It's very large. It's in an area of town that is mostly industrial, warehouses, businesses, not a whole lot of apartments. But because of this, the neighborhood's resources, like the police department, the amount of people who work there,
Boom! Vike with the primer, the first sub of the stream. Thank you, Vike. Appreciate the primer for 45 months. Heck yeah. NYC sucks. Wow, Vike. Wow. Why?
The amount of emergency vehicles on staff in case people need to get taken to a hospital or have some sort of emergency, all of that is now inadequate for the growing population of the neighborhood. Yet from the mayor's perspective, had he been very vocal about the shelter being set up, there definitely would have been protests. There are every single time one of these gets set up for a variety of reasons. And residents by this shelter in Brooklyn say that it's unfair that every neighborhood in Brooklyn and in the rest of the city doesn't also have its own 3,000-person shelter. But what they don't understand is that this is all about money, and sometimes the most affordable place to put a shelter is not in the West Village or Soho, which have 0 shelters, but is in an outer borough where you've got an abandoned building that nobody's using anymore. Which reveals how hard it is for the mayor to carry out a policy a majority of New Yorkers say they support every time they're asked, leaving the city.
So this thing is also primarily like a grift, like a taxpayer dollar grift as well. A massive, massive taxpayer scam to the taxpayer, like most government programs become. Wow.
With secrecy as its main tool to get these shelters up and running. Because what other choice do they have? Residents want to vote for people who support right to shelter, but when it's time for right to shelter, everybody's got a problem with it. However, the fact that secrecy...
Yeah, that's what I was commenting on, Vike. It's like all these New Yorkers will complain and complain and complain about all of these issues and then vote Democrat. Like, what?
Is involved here opens this entire process up to what looks like corruption, and very well may be. And apparently the developer of this Bronx apartment building that became a shelter has been profiting off New York's growing homeless crisis since 2017 in some way. And that's the same story with the developer of the Gowanus Brooklyn facility that could never have been apartments but is now a shelter all of a sudden because we've got a humanitarian crisis, and this is somebody who's got experience doing this in the past, creating facilities that it then leases out to the government for taxpayer dollars. Yet at the same time, this is all being done because here we are in a blue progressive city where people say they want to be compassionate, vote for laws and policies that look and seem compassionate, but then suddenly don't have the energy to do it when their neighborhood gets selected to be compassionate first. What do you think about that? Is the city doing what it has to do to carry out?
Boom! Riding Fence with the primer. Thank you, Riding Fence. Appreciate the primer for 66. That's 66 months. Wow, that's awesome, Riding Fence. Thank you so much, Riding Fence. Good to have you here, my man. Yeah, Vike, didn't realize how filthy and nasty NYC was until I left and go back. Dude, when I go to NYC, I kind of feel like everything's disgusting. Like, if I touch anything, it's like I want to go and shower and clean up. It's like, I don't know. I agree, man. I like living in Montana where it's like, it's nature, and like the nastiest thing is going to be dirt, not like human remains or some crap like that. They're also getting free food, but the migrants would throw it in the trash. I saw that. Oh, yeah. No, Num. We watched that video on my stream, Num. We watched that one on my stream. Swallow bollocks. What's up? Biden pardoned this lady who stole $50 million from her small town to fund her horse breeding nonsense. Wow.
The law of the land. Do residents here unknowingly or incorrectly support laws that are different in practice than they are on paper when they are voted on? Let me know how New York City could fix its asylum crisis. Thank you so much for watching.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a real good one. That's a real good one. When was this?
Elections have consequences. For the last 4 years, we have seen the most radical experiment in open borders this nation has ever seen. There are many reasons the American people showed up in overwhelming numbers to vote, to re-elect Donald Trump, to elect a Republican majority in the Senate, to re-elect a Republican majority in the House, but there was no reason more front and center than the open borders of the last 4 years.
True.
And I have to say, I think there were a number of us wondering, did any of the Democrats in Congress learn anything from the election? And the existence of this hearing makes very clear the answer is no. We've seen 12 million people come into this country illegally under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. My home state of Texas has seen more than any state in the country. There is a reason that the Rio Grande Valley, which has been Democrat for over 100 years, flipped red this election. Because when your home is invaded by more than 12 million people, it changes your voting patterns. Every single day, we have seen Americans murdered. We have seen women raped. We have seen children brutalized by criminal, illegal aliens released deliberately by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The numbers are staggering. According to ICE, as of July 21st, 2024, nearly 650,000 criminal illegal aliens were currently on ICE's non-detained docket, which means they've been released. They're wandering around, they're free. And of those 650,000, 14,940.
No, swallow bollocks. Nobody wants to deport people who are citizens. No, you deport illegal aliens. And if the illegal aliens have kids that are American citizens, presumably they'll want to take their kids with them because that's how families work.
Have been convicted of homicide. You want to know what mass deportation is? Those 14,944 better pack their bags right now. Because with a new administration, we're going to show up, we're going to arrest you, and we are going to deport you.
Yes.
20,061 have been convicted of sexual assault. Now, I want you to ask of my Democrat colleagues, and it is striking that virtually none of them are here. That is reflected in their conduct because they are silent and putting their head in the sand as to the human tragedies. But what resident of what blue state says, you know what, America's better off with 20,000 rapists being released into this country? 105,146 have been convicted of assault. I would ask my Democrat colleagues if they were here, why the hell today does the Biden administration not go and arrest every one of these criminals and deport them? What rational world says America's better off with more criminals? And these are not just statistics. Ms. Moran, thank you for being here. The country grieves the loss of your daughter. Your daughter was beautiful. She was a mom who I know loved her kids. And she's not with us today. She was raped and murdered because this administration chose to release a violent criminal into America. Your daughter should still be alive. And every one of these victims should still be alive. Laken Riley, a name that the Democrats on this committee can't bring themselves to utter.
Man, this is unbelievable. Wow.
And in my hometown,
these Democrats are
Jocelyn
sick.
Nungry, I've gotten to know Jocelyn's mother, Alexis, very well. Ms. Moran, like you, Alexis is incredibly brave. I cannot imagine the pain.
I haven't seen this.
I'm a father. To lose your child, no parent should have to bury their child. Children should bury their parents, not the other way around. It is wrong what happened to you. But I want to say to you, thank you for having the courage to tell Rachel's story. I would understand if you just curled up in a ball and cried. But, and I'm sure you have wept a lot of tears. But thank you for having the courage to tell Rachel's story. And I want to say, if there is anything that is a mandate from this election, it is to end this insanity, stop these murders, stop these rapes, stop these assaults, protect our citizens. And Ms. Moran, I just want to give you the opportunity at the end of my questioning to share from your perspective why this matters, why we should stop releasing criminals into America.
In order to prepare for this hearing, I was actually looking at statistics over the last couple of days. And most of the rape and murder statistics by illegal immigrants are actually against children. And to me, that's astounding.
Wow.
I don't know how many people here have children or grandchildren, but can you imagine your 7, 8, 9-year-old daughter being forcibly raped by a stranger? Sometimes multiple times. This is the culture, and I realize it's not all immigrants, but this is the culture that they come from, this kind of violence. They grow up in it in their countries. To them, it's just part of what they've known for their lives. But to bring that criminal culture into America, it's destroying our families. I know of women in my hometown that have come up to me because...
I agree with that, conservative Irk. Yeah, just coming here legally and being here illegally, that makes you a criminal. So at that point, you are a criminal illegal alien for sure.
They know I'm Rachel's mom and say to me, some guy just ran up behind me and tried to pull me down to the ground. And if it wasn't for the fact that I could fight him off and run to a store to call the police, I might not be here. And in one incident, that man had attacked 7 other women.
Wow.
Why are we allowing this? And then the women and children that are raped, and because they're so ashamed of what's happened to them, how they've been so violated, they don't say anything. So the numbers are grossly underestimated, I believe, as far as the crimes that are happening in our country.
Holy cow, man. I was not necessarily prepared for that. Not necessarily prepared for that one.
My salary has stayed consistent, but the rent has gone up tremendously.
Rising rents coupled with the high cost of utilities just adding to the strain New Yorkers are feeling.
My coffee is like $8 every day.
Right, $8 coffee. So when you combine out-of-control living expenses with sky-high rents, you've got the makings of an extreme affordability crisis. A crisis which is growing, with recent rents having risen 18% since 2019. However, incomes have only risen 11% since then, and many folks feel like the city is trying to force them out. Yet not only do our leaders seem totally uninterested in dealing with this crisis, critics say some of their plans might be making it worse.
New Yorkers know it. Now new data backs it up. Rents have been steadily rising in New York City in recent years, but incomes have not kept pace. Median rents in New York City rose 18% between 2019 and 2023. During that same period, incomes only grew by just over 11%.
Well, now a new poll finds as more New Yorkers struggle.
Dude, this is not looking good for New York. Whoa.
New York is now so old and dilapidated that when we try to build new buildings to fix our housing crisis, the ones we already have might fall down. But what nobody's talking about is that housing costs here are rising so fast that soon many renters may find this city impossible to live in altogether. And with the median asking rent for any NYC apartment hitting $3,400 per month in August, it's no surprise why. Because to even qualify for a $3,400 apartment, you'll need an income of $136,000 per year, just for the privilege of selling all your possessions to move into a tiny little box. And even if you make $100,000 a year here in New York City, that only gives you around $36,000 of spending power after you take care of your rent and other essentials. Revealing this city may not be the land of opportunity many people claim it is, especially for those just starting out professionally. And critics say, at best, New York is a place where an overachiever with a high income skill can slave away just to pay their landlord's mortgage. And although there's nothing inherently wrong with renting, and living in New York City does have its positives for those wishing to advance their careers, the amount of money that costs a person may end up destroying one's finances before they even realize it. And that brings us to the real reason why rising living costs are such a big problem. They never seem to stop rising, and they're already at an unsustainable level. Yet while this is going on, our leaders are fighting over things that don't help New Yorkers get ahead in life, like banning cars, or finding little ways to continue crippling our understaffed police department, which is especially surprising when you consider that opposition to common sense plans like building new apartments, something everyone here should be talking about, often comes from progressives who...
Yo, Juggalo Mid, welcome Juggalo Mid, good to see you. It's always dicey. Wait. Hold on. Might be different in America, but we have the problem over here of having to talk about a huge majority of Pakistani Muslim men perpetrating these kinds of crimes. Demographic change and the direct correlation in the rise of violent crime, especially sexual violent crime directed at women. I don't care how racist it sounds, people should be talking about. And that's an interesting point. That actually hadn't really like ticked for me, really, like that sense that like perhaps other countries around the world do have cultures of rape and cultures of sexual violence. And if you bring a bunch of those people here, you're going to have a bunch of American women getting raped. I find that very, very disturbing and problematic, and a very, very, very high priority to prevent. Obviously. That's crazy that you can get. So conservative irk. So for saying like Pakistani men or Indian men in Great Britain are like more likely to like rape women, so be careful around them. Like you can get arrested for saying that. Is that what you mean?
Claim to care about the
By the way, Nat, no Torah, no, not your average white guy. Not your average white guy. What's up?
A working man. And that's why, as you're about to see, everyday people here are waging a battle against affordability that they are probably going to lose. So if you want to go with Elon Musk to Mars in the future, you can get used to what that's going to be like right here today, because we're in one of the most affordable apartments anywhere in Manhattan. This is a $52.95 per month, 3-bedroom apartment. That's the same price as a 2-bedroom. And this is actually a really smart way to get a shower in a small apartment. You're not going to hurt yourself in here. But even though the per person cost here is $1,765 a month per person, and you get queen size bedrooms, already that's a lot of money for an entry level apartment experience in New York.
And that brings up a big question. Who exactly are these tiny apartments designed for?
Do you think it's too expensive to live in New York City? Yes, absolutely.
Of course, 100%.
New Yorkers know it. Now new data backs it up. Rents have been steadily rising in New York City in recent years, but incomes have not kept pace. Median rents in New York City rose 18%.
So the frightening thing about this is that since rents are rising faster than people's incomes, no matter where you live or what it costs, eventually it'll probably be too much. And what that means is the person who should move here and rent an apartment like this is somebody who thinks they're going to be on some sort of career path that will allow their income to outpace rental growth no matter what it is. But for most of us, that involves a great deal of risk. For example, when I first moved here, I was an accountant at a Big 4 accounting firm, and after my first year at the company, I got a raise, which did help me afford more at the grocery store, but didn't provide me with a whole lot of extra upward mobility. And had my rent gone up more than my cost of living based raise, I might not have been able to stay. But then after talking to my coworkers, I realized why people move to New York in the first place. They move here to build up their resumes and their skills so that in the future, better opportunities will be available. But that kind of plan is incredibly risky because job markets change. Sometimes when the job market's great and companies are involved in a talent stealing contest with each other, you can go to one place, work there for a few years and then leave, get a huge raise. But when the job market flips, that might not remain the case. And over the last year or so, we've heard of people in all industries, even tech, where jobs were high paying and apparently very secure. Well, people are finding out their jobs might not be as secure as they once were, which is too bad, which has a lot to do with why incomes are not rising as fast as rents, because although we're in a housing crisis, employers are not facing a hiring crisis. Either way, moving to a city...
This guy's pretty good. I like this guy's videos. Oh, man. Montana Trooper Palmer and family awarded a new home. Oh my gosh, I don't even dare. Oh, you know what I did want to read about? Foreign adversary flying drones over New Jersey White House downplays. Of course they do. Dude, I did want to read this article about people. I love these stories about people being told that, hey, sorry, you can't work from home anymore. You have to come into the office, and they're like, nah, I'll quit. It's like, okay, obviously you weren't working. NYC collapse incoming. Sure seems like it, doesn't it? Holy cow. Remember, Britain does not have free speech, correct? Gets even more complicated because for the huge number of Muslim... Hold on, did you answer my earlier question, conservative work? Oh, okay, yeah. Gets even more complicated because for the huge number of Muslims already here who don't engage in that behavior, and it's the majority of them which don't, they are either in denial or downright scared of persecution from other Muslims if they talk about it or try to deal with it in their communities. The imams don't address it, religious community leaders. That's disgusting. Doesn't that show you the bankruptcy of that religion? Period. You're good. I forget what it was even. Outright firings for return to office non-compliance appear to be rare. Wait, what? How are outright firings for return to office non-compliance rare? Hey, you have to come back to the office. No, I'm going to continue to work from home. Okay, fine. Wait, what? How does that work? Or at least handled quietly, but the specter is real. Publicis Media in October terminated several dozen employees who flouted in-office requirements. The company declined to comment. Starbucks has warned its office employees they could be fired if they don't show up 3 days a week starting next month. Businesses including Roblox and Grindr have offered severance packages to employees who decline to show up as often as required, while others like Snap have laid off workers while citing in-office targets. In conversations with more than a dozen people who've gone through return to office related job losses or believe one could be imminent, they said that being shown the exit isn't the worst part. Harder to swallow is the realization that they might never again score a remote or hybrid work arrangement as good as the one they had. Oh, dude, I guarantee you I could never get as good of a job situation as I have. Or it certainly would not be easy to replicate it. So I totally understand how these people feel. It's like, yeah, dude, if you've got a great job, great career, great company, and you're hybrid or something, and you got a pretty flexible situation, and you lose that, yeah, I would feel pretty crappy too. I feel you about the cops giving up. I'm a state trooper in my state. We've had an increase of police from the left coast for positions. Pay is lower, but respect is higher, and the state will actually back us, unlike where they come from. Yeah, no, that is good, Juggalo Mid. That's awesome. I work a ton, so nobody cares that I work from home. I noticed my boss and coworker don't work as much as I do. Oh, wow, really, Num? Good for you, man. Good for you then, Num. Yeah, then you are you're making yourself indispensable. You're making your job more secure. You're doing a good job. That's fantastic, man. Good for you. Stephanie Pittman says she lost a remote job as the director of vendor management for a building maintenance company. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Uh-oh. Oh my gosh, I've been sick, man. I've actually been sick and sneezing a whole bunch lately. I've had to deal with overly libertarian streamers who argue that forcing people to physically go to a workplace is a tyranny of some sort, authoritarian rather, and I suspect it's a social awkwardness and slightly autistic thing. That's just weird. I don't know what that would describe. I just describe that as weird. By the way, Supro for you. Welcome. Hello. By the way, Supro for you. Sorry I didn't say hello. Yo, Supro for you. Welcome. Am I saying your name right? Supro for you. Welcome, bro. The company started calling employees back to its headquarters and hiring people who could work in person. Pittman, a 51-year-old attorney, had taken the job to escape a previous employer's back-to-office push and is anchored to Wichita by 4 children, her husband's job as a judge, and aging parents who live a mile away. Well, why doesn't she get a real job in Wichita then? Her old job is now posted as an on-site position. With part-time legal work as a contractor, Pittman has maintained her income in the months since her layoff, but the outlook for another high-paying remote job is discouraging. She's gotten little traction on more than 100 applications so far. It's just so frustrating, so demoralizing. Is she serious? So she's one of these people. So there are actually people out there who will only work full remote jobs. It's like, I understand that if you've got a full remote job, like, good for you. But like, thinking you're entitled to one, or that you're only ever going to work a full remote job and you'll accept nothing less, like, that's ridiculous, I think. I gotta hold on a second. I gotta blow my nose. I'm still sick, man. Let me mute myself here.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News for Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Stand up for your country. Busy news day. The whole week's been busy. Trump is a person of the year, according to Time magazine, which hates him. By the way, we'll get into that. Drone madness at my house. I had one here. I'll explain it. FBI chaos. That's an interesting story. And we will have classic rocker Gene Simmons from Kiss, who did some of the music for the movie Reagan. He'll be here, talk a little politics, a little music. But first, let's go to the FBI thing. That's the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. So Christopher Wray is out. He says he's going to resign in January, age 57. Appointed FBI director by Donald Trump, June 7, 2017. Served for 7 years.
All right. Sorry about that. Hopefully I sound better. We had a position open on my team, and we had 700 applications for a full remote job. Wow, Num, 700? What were the qualifications, Num? Like, what did you have to have? Did you have to have a degree to get the job, or like, what were the qualifications? Because that sounds like a lot, but if it's like a really highly qualified, or even if it's like a job that requires some qualifications, and then it's like it seems like even more. In fact, hold on. My policy is 4 days a week. I require people who can deal with each other face to face and work and assemble as a team in the same room. You don't get that kind of camaraderie. Elon Musk is right. I agree. As an employer, I most certainly can create policy that requires you to be at work 5 days a week and ensemble. Like, what does that mean? Like that? Why don't you just say like ensemble? And like, why don't you just say like have a meeting? Like ensemble is just having a meeting, correct?
Years. I would say he has been terrible.
But I agree. I mean, of course, conservative work, like, of course. Like, duh. Like, are there seriously people like arguing against like the idea that if you can either show up to work 5 days a week for 40 hours a week or you get fired, and that there's anything wrong with that? Are there seriously people arguing against that? Like, what's the argument against it?
Maybe not worse than James Comey, but close. Prior to that, Christopher Wray had a pretty good career going in Washington. He was appointed by George Bush the Younger to be Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division of the Department of Justice. He did a good job there, which is why Trump gave him the head of the FBI. But boy, did he blow it. And I'm going to prove it with hard facts. First of all, let's go to Donald Trump. Here's what his reaction was to Wray's resignation yesterday. Quote, "The resignation of Christopher Wray is a great day for America," says President Trump, "as it will end the weaponization of what has become known as the United States Department of Injustice. I just don't know what happened to him." Okay, so let's examine the facts here, right? So the guy who supervised Christopher Wray as head of the FBI.
Wow, pro law. I mean, harsh pro law, but I agree pro law. If you can't show up to the office, you need to be fired. But yeah, no, very based, very, very based. My argument against it boils down to the commute to and from workplace, since most of these jobs are in the city where there is no housing. Yeah, super for you. That's a good argument to argue to your employer to say, hey, man, let me have a hybrid environment or whatever. That's a perfectly fine argument to make in a rationale, logic based appeal. But if your employer says no, then you have to show up. And it's like, I'm actually in favor of in certain positions for certain people allowing hybrid environments. Like, I actually agree with conservative work that if you're on a team, in person is really the only way to have that develop long term. But I think you can have that. Number one, yeah, I mean, I think you can develop that within 3 days a week, especially if you're intentional with those 3 days a week. You may be in the office 5 days a week, but if you don't see your teammates every day, then that would be the same thing as being there 3 days a week and seeing them a lot during those 3 days. You know what I mean?
Is Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley from Iowa. So the Iowan has oversight over Wray.
Right, yeah.
He's Wray's boss, really. I mean, president is, because the president can fire Wray. But the guy watching him is Grassley. Grassley does not like Wray at all. Number one, the senator is angry FBI did not properly vet Afghan refugees after the embarrassing surrender. Quote, the FBI report revealed the National Guard Intelligence Center flagged at least 50 Afghan refugees for the FBI as potential significant security concerns. The FBI failed entirely to answer my inquiry on the serious national security issue. So,
many bosses believe they no longer have to put up with work from home holdouts. Hell yeah, baby. This is exactly what we're talking about. Many bosses believe they no longer have to put up with work from home holdouts. Behind closed doors, there's a view among CEOs that I'm tired of this whining about coming back to work. We've compromised enough, and if you're not meeting the minimum, then we're going to move on without you. Love it. Though a lot of workers seemingly have little choice but to comply with return to office mandates, Kaplan predicts many will refuse anyway and foresees a bloodbath in 2025 with neither employers nor employees backing down. Some people are sitting on savings from post-pandemic boom and can afford to be jobless for a while. Others are optimistic the labor market will heat back up and re-empower them to negotiate flexible working arrangements. There's some evidence the highest earners are starting to claw back leverage. Ladders, a job site for six-figure positions, reports 10% of roles that pay $250K or more were advertised as remote in the third quarter of this year, up from 9% in the second quarter. Nate Vance says he took a buyout from a dating app maker Grindr in April rather than move within commuting distance of an office. He was hired as a remote and bought a house in Washington State, 800 miles from the company's nearest office, believing he could work from home permanently. What an idiot. He didn't want to move and figured the math was in his favor. Why give up a property he owns with a mortgage around 3% to pay exorbitant rent in the Bay Area? Vance, 50, says he got 3 months severance, was able to collect unemployment for 6 months. Now he's dipping into savings and retirement accounts and estimates he has 2 months of runway. He's coming to grips with the possibility of having to relocate after all. I'm applying for jobs anywhere and everywhere that I think I have a shot because I'm at the point where I don't really know what's going to happen. You worked at Grindr, dude. What the heck? What on earth is this article? Oh my goodness, dude. What is going on with this? Joe, by the way, Jay Leet Sauce. What's up, Jay Leet Sauce? Can Hunter Biden plead the fifth now that he has been... that's still up for debate. I would argue no, he cannot plead the fifth because, he got pardoned for everything. But he could potentially argue that he could still be subject to criminal liability in a state and could plead the fifth for that reason. I don't know the illegal answer to that question. Apparently, Alan Dershowitz doesn't know either because he said that could be a fight. Sorry, I'm trying to... No, conservative Irk, I don't have any problem with ensemble. Merriam-Webster defined it a little bit differently than you did, conservative Irk, but I have no problem with your use of the word ensemble and how you used it. I think you used it appropriately. I didn't know actually the specific definition of the word. I've obviously heard the word and kind of knew generally what it meant, but I didn't know the specific definition of it until now, though. So it's on me. I'm mainly talking about a few older folks I work with. One who I'm convinced lost her eyesight and can't read a computer screen. She spends her time wasting other people's time instead of getting her own work done. Wow. Oh no. Royal Orleans 14, what's up? People are inherently lazy. COVID raised to stay at house, do nothing. Oh, for sure. Too many folks in the office just spend time gossiping. Oh, for sure. Honestly, I think the hybrid environment is the worst, either fully in person or fully remote. It creates other problems. It does kind of, Prologue, because now you're doing what I'm talking about. If you're hybrid, where it's like you're in the office 3 days a week, during those 3 days a week, it's just a chat fest because you're so excited to see everybody and be there, and it's so exciting and stuff. You know what I mean? It just becomes a chat fest. That's also true, Num. That's also true, Num. Yeah, like I can oftentimes get a lot more work done working from home than being in the office too. Because, dude, when I'm in the office, all my friends are coming by. And by friends, I mean, other partners, associates, paralegals, associates or assistants, et cetera, people I talk to and work at the, we're friends, and so everybody, if you work in a big office with a lot of people, a lot of people, and, everybody stops by and chats for, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, burn up an entire morning chatting with people. It's crazy. Like, I needed to get signatures for a closing the other day. My company's old school, gets physical signatures. The big firms I worked at had DocuSign. No one signed anything physically. Now I had to deal with people being in the office some days and not others. We don't have DocuSign to make it easier because of this hybrid thing. Right, right. Dude worked at Grindr. You got to be kidding me. Exactly, Jaguar, exactly. I think it depends on your job and how good your home office is. My home office is dramatically better than my work office. I can work longer uninterrupted. Oh, dude, yeah, Elite Sauce. Dude, that's the thing, like, with me. Like, dude, my home office is right here. Like, when I work from home, I literally like move back. I move back all of my streaming stuff. I flip this mic way out of the way, and I get my mouse and keyboard out of the way, and then I'll set up my laptop right here, and I'll just work right here. Which, this is an awesome room. This is a full like two-car garage size room with high ceilings that I've, finished, and it's got all my stuff in it. It's nice. I need lighting. My lighting is all failed out. My lighting is completely failed. I have 5 lighting fixtures, and I have one that's working. That's why it's like so dark behind me and my face is all lit up, because I do have another light here to light me up, but that's why it's so crazy looking. A Grindr spokeswoman says the company has increased headcount by 44% in the past year while requiring employees to report to offices 2 days a week. 2 days a week, dude. Wow. I thought hybrid was like 3 days a week is something. Like 2 days a week? So much for the days of collecting a big city salary in some far-flung retreat. Just 8% of jobs posted on LinkedIn are remote, down from 18% in early 22. Those roles are ultra competitive, drawing 40% of applications submitted through LinkedIn. The job site Indeed reports the share of remote listings on its platform is about 8% and says the posted salary ranges for remote have widened. That could indicate employers are trying to pay less for workers who live away from expensive coastal cities, though Indeed says there aren't enough data to be sure. Kendall joined Amazon during his 21 hiring spree while living in Nashville, where the company was building a new office. When Amazon paused construction the following year, at the same time Chilton was going through a divorce and eager for a change of scenery, she says she received permission to move closer to family in Baton Rouge. She'd been working from home full-time anyway. What the heck? As the company intensified its push to bring employees back to offices, she was laid off in July. People in similar roles who could report to offices regularly were spared. Amazon declined to comment on whether RTO compliance is factored into cuts. Instead of searching in vain for another remote, Chilton, 32, decided to switch careers. She joined her father's custom home building business, spent about a year laying hardwood floors and installing insulation, and ultimately earned her general contractor's license. Her experience vetting job candidates helps her sniff out good and bad subs, and she says she is happier without the fear of an office callback or the anguish of a job hunt. So many people are looking down the barrel and never having their remote work situation again. I completely relate to that and feel bad for people in that position. I don't. I mean, I relate to it, but I don't feel bad for them. I get to maintain a hybrid. I get to maintain a hybrid work situation because I own the firm. That's how it works. Not to be an asshole about it or an arrogant dick. Sorry, but it's just kind of the way it goes. If I was an associate and I was told I need to be in the office 5 days a week, I'd be in the office 5 days a week. Oh yeah, I was going to see what the Trump War Room has popping for us. Or is it just Team Trump?
Some of the names that have been floated around preemptive partisan, since it would just be such an unusual, extraordinary step. We talked about in the news, we've seen Liz Cheney, Dr. Fauci.
You're talking about the preemptive pardoning.
Right. I understand you don't want to get ahead of the president's thinking, but are any of those names wrong? Or still, can you tell? I mean, do you want to tell us anything about?
It would be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or previewed anything that the president was thinking about, considering, and so this is something that he's going to talk with his team about. And I just don't have anything beyond that for you.
Some of the names that have been floated around.
Crazy, man. Yeah, so pro law. That's crazy. 45 minutes. That's a long time, man. Oh man. Yeah, that's crazy that's crazy that these remote job postings get that many postings. I wouldn't ever. Honestly, I did not like fully remote. I wouldn't go back to fully remote. Even as an office worker, quote unquote, which I am. Like, I would not go back to fully remote. I didn't like fully remote. I got cabin fever. I missed people. I missed the feeling of being gone for the day and coming home at the end of the day. Like, I didn't like it. I like going to the office. But it's also very, very nice, like on a Friday tomorrow, like for me to be able to stay at home and wear comfortable sweats and stuff and drink my own nice coffee here at home and wear sweats and sit at my laptop here and dude, so freaking nice. So freaking nice.
On the drones, does the U.S. government have any of its own imagery or video of these systems?
I'm not aware that we have U.S. government produced imagery ourselves, but as I said in my opening statement, we have certainly done thorough analysis of the existing imagery.
Like from people's cell phones that we're seeing Basically, with what you're looking at, how can you credibly tell people that there is no public safety threat, there's no national security threat, that there's no reason to believe that a foreign government is involved?
Because the analysis thus far, in an investigation that is ongoing, has not revealed any national security or malicious intent or criminal activity. But, Jackie, I would remind you, we're at the beginning here, not the end. There's a lot more work to be done, and we're working closely with state and local authorities to gain more information. I would argue that we're moving pretty well here.
No, you're not moving pretty well here. This is something that should have been figured out and obvious in 20 seconds. If this is an American citizen flying in a drone in some unknown improper location, you'd have him arrested in 2 seconds.
We feel because having feelings is a source and an indication of one's strength and humanity. But we do not let anything defeat us. And so as we close out this year and prepare for the new year, I ask all the leaders here, applaud each other and yourselves because we love our country.
I can't even handle it, man. I cannot handle. I'm not watching Kamala Harris, period. Whoa, cool. We have Marco Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard in the house.
She's here on the Hill meeting with my colleagues. She's going to be a great DNI, a Director of National Intelligence. It's a really important job. It oversees all of our intelligence agencies. And it's in need of reform. I think everybody would admit that. And so we need to bring in a reformer. And so I know her meetings are going to go well. Our conversation's gone great today, and we're just grateful that you're willing to do it. And if I'm here, I look forward to voting for you.
Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity. I'm grateful that President Trump has asked me to come and join the team, and just appreciate your leadership and your support, both, of course, as we navigate through this process, but most importantly, as we work to serve the country.
Right. I look forward to working together with you on the cabinet and the great team that President Trump's put together.
Boom! Let's go. This is Trump 2024. This is the Trump admin. Let's go.
This is how we're feeling today, right here. Feeling great. Fighting for the country, fighting for. This is how we're feeling today, right here. This is how we're feeling today, right here. This is how we're feeling today, right here. Feeling great. Fighting for the country. This is how we're feeling today, right here. Feeling great. Fighting for the country, fighting for our military. This is how we're feeling today, right here. Feeling great. Fighting for the country, fighting for our military.
Boom! Get him, Pete Hegseth. Hell yeah.
Why do you think Democrats lost, and what do you think needs to happen by the midterms and the next presidential election in order to find your footing again?
Well, Kristen, no disrespect to you. I think you do great work. But the reality is that those that tune in to traditional news sources, they absolutely went for us. And we know that the standards that you have to live by as an actual journalist are completely different from other platforms. And so we know.
So she literally just meant that people that watch NBC News and trust the media vote Democrat. People that have independent thoughts and think for themselves vote Republican. Love it.
That we were winning for those that were tuning into the traditional news sources. But when it came down to people getting their news from places that really aren't even news sources, they were going for Donald Trump by 19 points. And that is exactly why we lost. The reality is that we're going to have to play in spaces that we've never had to play and make sure that we're communicating in all ways. Unfortunately, we can't just rely on the mainstream media to get our message.
Wow, throwing the mainstream media under the bus, basically saying, hey, mainstream media, you used to be enough to get us across the line. You would not anymore because nobody cares about you anymore. Biden Education Department spent over $1 billion on DEI grants. Wow. Parents Defending Education found hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent on diversity, equity, and inclusion programming over the past 4 years. U.S. Department of Education spent at least $1 billion on grants advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in hiring, programming, and mental health training in America's schools since 2021. Parents Defending Education, a right-leaning organization that pledges to reclaim our schools from activists imposing harmful agendas. Unbelievable, dude. No, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. It's just so over the top, and there's so many examples of it, and it's so bad. It's just almost too frustrating to even continue to read. Yes, Sussy. Yes, Pete is still in the running. Exactly, Chuckle Limit. So in other words, the mainstream media can't carry enough of our water. Right. They used to be able to carry the water, but they can't anymore.
We've been talking a lot about this Luigi Mangione, the case about the United Healthcare system. People are very angry at United Healthcare. I think for good reason, denying care and the whole system. And
wow, these people are sick and evil. You're looking at Satan in the eyes pretty much right here.
we were just talking in the previous block, killing a CEO is not the way you change. You have to regulate them, right? And so we've got attempts to try to rein in some of these big businesses. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was your creation. The Trump administration wants to get rid of it. That is like protecting people from like credit card fraud.
No, it's not. It's causing problems for the poorest of the poor, you idiot.
Yeah. What happens if that goes away?
So look, terrible for individuals, but stop and think overall about the social contract. Part of the deal in how we've kept this democracy, this economy, this country on a fairly steady path for more than 200 years has been that those at the top pay a little more in taxes, are a little less rich than they otherwise might be, and everybody else at least gets a chance.
Yeah.
And what happens when you turn this into the billionaires run it all is they get the opportunity to squeeze every last penny.
Yeah.
And look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
Wow. So literally laying the moral justification for violence just like the Bolsheviks did. Wow. Very disturbing stuff right there. Yikes. RNC says these people are truly sick and twisted. Yeah, you think? Holy cow. Oh, Trump War Room. Is the Trump War Room? No, the Trump War Room stopped posting. Oh, no, it still reposts stuff. Cool. Okay. I didn't realize the Trump War Room still reposts stuff.
And joining us now, the Trump-Vance transition team senior advisor, Jason Miller. Jason, always great to have you here. I like that title as the senior advisor for the transition team. Certainly seems like that transition is going pretty well. Everything coming up Trump, especially today.
It really is. And
I'm sorry, let me read chat. No one has explained to me why this specific person was a bad guy. From what I can tell, this guy was everything right with the corporate leader. I don't know anything about him, Pro-Law. No, they don't. I don't think the Democrats or anybody in the media or the left cares anything other than that, oh, he was a CEO. They think that's enough that he should be killed. Why would any reputable media clown allow Pocahontas on? Oh, I know. She's a scumbag. You did it with Obamacare. Oh, I know, Nom. This from the nobody's above the law crowd? Yeah, exactly. How are we as conservatives going to reassert the actual meaning and spirit of the word equity? You are a lawyer. This word is pivotal to and incredibly important to your profession, historically, right from the creation of the equity courts in the 18th century. True. Conservatives in America, who I am incredibly pissed off with in this regard, have behaved like cowards and haven't fought to protect what it means. They've demonized the word and thrown it out because they've been unable to stop the left from stealing it. It's never meant equal. No, I agree with that, and I think that's right. you see that not just with that word, though. It's not just limited to that word. That happens all the time where, like, the left, the Democrats will, like, start misusing a word and using an incorrect definition for a word. And then conservatives will just agree with that definition and then basically stop using that word in the correct way. That happens kind of all the time. It is very frustrating. But you're right. Equity is a fundamental part of American law that we obviously got from British common law, and you're right about that.
I don't know what you guys had done today by 9:30 a.m., but Time Person of the Year, check. Open the New York Stock Exchange, check. That's a pretty good day to get things started. But the one other thing that I would point also with regard to the economy and the economic surge and energy behind President Trump's win, this past week we had both the NFIB put out a report saying that small business...
I would agree with that, conservative Irk. Equity ends up resembling a form of meritocracy. I would agree with that. I would agree with that, conservative Irk. It is kind of meritocracy, because under, like, if you're really doing equity, you're basically gonna hold people to account for their actions, right? So it's like you're looking at a situation, and it's like, okay, if somebody did something that was basically kind of like either deceptive or negligent or stupid or whatever, it's like that's gonna be called to account, and you're gonna be held to account for that. Whereas if you were just doing everything right and you acted totally reasonably and et cetera, and like sort of this crazy situation happened, blah blah, then you know, it's a different situation. So it is a form of meritocracy. That's a really good way of looking at it.
Optimism is through the roof. It's skyrocketing since the election. And also, Chuck Robbins from Cisco, head of the Business Roundtable, put out a report saying that CEO confidence and optimism in our economy is skyrocketing through the roof. So you have Main Street and Wall Street both buoyed by President Trump's election. And as we saw today, there were a lot of people excited to see the president down at the stock exchange.
I think what conservative Irk, when he means equal, is like equal outcomes, which is communism, which is how they use equity. They do kind of use equity to basically try to say it's communism, when we're trying to say, no, it's not communism. I think that's what he meant by equal, like equal outcomes, regardless of anything else, right? Don't you guys, pro law and numb, you'd agree with that the way the American left uses equity involves equal outcomes, which is communism, right?
Jason, I would venture to say that maybe Time Magazine, other media outlets haven't always been so kind to President Trump over the years.
That's an understatement.
What has changed all of a sudden? What do you think?
Well, I think part of this is the recognition that President Trump won the popular vote, that he won 312 electoral votes. This race wasn't even close. He so completely dominated the Democrat opposition. I mean, he knocked out literally 2 different Democrat opponents during this campaign. But I think the other thing, too, is when you look at how...
Yeah, we're all on the same page, Num. We're all on the same page. I think everybody's on the same page. What conservative Irk is saying is that the actual real meaning of equity goes back to the 18th century in England, and the real meaning of equity has nothing to do with the way that it's being used in modern society. And he's saying that conservatives need to be stronger about explaining that the way that the left is using equity is a fraudulent way, right? For example, if a black man, a white man, a Mexican go for a job, an equitable result is one in which the person who exhibits the best skill and ability for that job is chosen. It's equal. It doesn't provide for a leg up, but it's an equitable result that is equitable. That is what decided that Amber Heard didn't contribute sufficiently enough to her relationship with Johnny Depp to warrant a claim to his wealth. Well, that wasn't an equal result, but it was a fair and just one, equitable. Yeah, I agree, but then I tend to use it in my life more often to mean ownership. Equitable. Yeah, right, pro-law. Right, equity. Yeah, equity. I like owning equities. I love owning equities. How are your equities? How are your equities doing, Pro-Law? Equity comes from a Latin word which meant equality anyways. I don't know what era of the word we want to go back to. Hey, you guys, I'm gonna pass this one off to Pro-Law, Num, and Conservative Irk. You guys can come to the final conclusion on this one.
President Trump won. You look at the coalitions, the way that he brought in new African American, Latino American, Asian American voters into the party, increased his share with young voters, the way that he put together these union supporters. And so he's completely changed and upended the status quo in American politics. And that's why he has a mandate. I think that's part of the reason why the media has to respect him now. We'll see how long the honeymoon lasts, but they have to respect the mandate that he has to bring about this change to Washington. We have to do something about the ridiculous inflation, the porous border. These are all things he's going to jump into on day one.
I want to ask you about this. The president-elect was asked by Time magazine this. Speaking of Kamala Harris, what do you think were her worst mistakes in the campaign? He answered that it was, quote, taking the assignment. I think a lot of people, even Democrats, might agree with him, Jason.
Yeah, the Democrats were a complete disaster this election cycle. But you know what? Seeing how President Trump beat Joe Biden and beat Kamala Harris, I don't know if the Democrats could have put up anyone who's going to stop President Trump from returning to the White House. And Americans saw just what we were missing over this past 4 years with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris being in office. And it had, quite frankly, disastrous results for our country. But that spirit, that optimism, that excitement with President Trump's victory, and now we're only less than 40 days away from the president coming in and being sworn back in as president of the United States, gives everybody that bit of optimism, that bit of hope that their personal finances, their personal safety is going to improve with the president being back in office.
Jason, you mentioned the economy when you first started talking here. We have another question asked by Time magazine. They said, Mr. President, what did the Democrats not get? You said they didn't get it. What did you mean by that? Here was his answer. I thought the economy was a big factor, especially the real economy of going out.
Say a boom, boom, boom. All right, guys, I got to take a quick break. Quick break. No big deal, no big deal.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, did I not? Sorry, my bad.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Thank you, as always, for spending time with us. Privileged and radicalized. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, investigators tell us that they're trying to piece together the chain of events that may have led former high school valedictorian Luigi Mangione to become a suspected murderer. His Baltimore upbringing was privileged. His family was considered real estate royalty in the city. They were close-knit, known for their generous support of causes like St. Jude Children's Research Hospital through their private family foundation, which right now has about $4 million in assets. So what went wrong for this whip-smart young man who was seemingly liked by all? Was it a hideously painful aftermath of his back surgery? Or was he somehow radicalized to violence on the internet or even by friends? We don't know. His manifesto reportedly said he wasn't working with anyone else, and he railed against the healthcare industry in it and its leaders. He called them parasites, and he did refer to United Healthcare by name. But until we learn more, I think it is worth examining the place he spent 6 years of his adult life, the University of Pennsylvania. We all know it's part of the Ivy League. It's considered one of the premier institutions of higher learning in America. And as an engineering student, he was immersed in difficult technical classes. So one would think that it is thus fairly insulated, right, from politics. Well, maybe. Maybe as a department it is, but the campus at large, we do know, is as liberal as any other top college or university today. It's worth recalling what happened when hate-filled anti-Israel protests filled the campus.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine!
And when then UPenn President Liz McGill testified on Capitol Hill about the protests, this is how the questioning went down.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context.
Now, of course, Mangione wasn't a student when any of this happened, but the details, the foundation of where he was, it's important to at least understand until we know more. Of course, McGill was forced out, good, but the rot obviously runs deep there. After the United Healthcare CEO murder, an assistant professor named Julia Alexeyeva decided to post fawning comments on TikTok under the name The Soviet. In one, she's seen smiling while playing the song Do You Hear the People Sing from Les Miserables, and the text on the screen reads, "Have never been prouder to be a professor at UPenn." Alexeyeva has since retracted her post, calling them insensitive and inappropriate. She didn't mean any of it. A UPenn deputy dean told The Angle her original posts were antithetical to the values of both the School of Arts and Sciences and the university, and they welcomed the retraction and correction. Okay, that's fine. But how many other Professor Alexeyevas are there embedded at UPenn? And what does it say about the university that she was hired in the first place? Alexeyeva's own website identifies her as a socialist and an ardent anti-fascist. She's an assistant prof in English, cinema, and media studies, researching the nexus between global media and radical leftist politics. Her first academic work is called Anti-Fascism and the Avant-Garde, of course.
How ridiculous. Holy crap. Holy crap. Let's play some CS, boys. Maybe we'll play some, I'm going to play some Microsoft. I really have been enjoying Flight Simulator's career mode. I'm going to love it. So we're going to be playing a lot of that this weekend. Super stoked about it. Actually, I might take tomorrow off work. Hey, anybody else trying to take tomorrow off work and play some games and hang out on Twitch? Prola. That's hilarious, Prola. I just don't want you guys to leave. I just want you guys to have something to do while I'm gone. I just don't want you guys to leave on me. That's all. I think